Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 13th of June. Today, the battle for number 10. Sir Keir Starmer wins a snap poll after a TV debate as he refuses to rule out some tax hikes. That's as Rishi Sunak is taken to task over D-Day.
The Prime Minister's Parliamentary Private Secretary is under fire after it was reported he placed a £100 bet on a July election date just days before the official announcement.
The golfer Rory McIlroy U-turns on his separation from his wife just 1 month after filing for divorce. We'll hear from a divorce expert.
Flash flooding, wildfires and scorching temperatures hit Europe as Britain experiences cold weather under an Arctic jet stream.
All petrol and diesel vehicles should be banned from our roads by 2035, according to the Green Party. We'll ask, is it really the right way forward?
With summer upon us, many of you are preparing to go abroad, but which airlines are experiencing the most delays? Stay tuned to find out.
And in the sport this morning, the Euros begin tomorrow. England defender, though, John Stones has been kept away from the rest of the squad with a sickness bug. Keely Hodgkinson, you know what? She was feeling a little under the weather as well yesterday, but she won the 800-metre gold at the European Athletics Championships. And would Australia resort to dirty tricks to get England knocked out of the T20 World Cup? Probably.
The winds will change direction during the next couple of days. It's becoming less cold, but not necessarily less wet. I'll have the full forecast in just a moment.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Well, we've got to talk about the election debate last night. Though I have to be honest, I only listened to it this morning when I was driving in.
That was a good idea, because I stayed up, but I was struggling.
Yeah.
I should have done that.
So I listened to it this morning driving in.
And what did you make of it?
Do you know what? It's left me even more undecided than I was before.
No. Oh, no.
Because I thought Rishi Sunak just seemed defeated.
Yes.
And Keir Starmer didn't answer any questions. He just didn't seem to have any. He rolled out what his messaging was, but just ignored the questions. And so I was just left really unimpressed with both of them last night. I just think if you watch these sort of things, to think, right, I need to make up my mind who's going to perform best.
And there'll be lots of people in that position.
Yeah, and I just thought that neither of them did very well. They both did very badly in different ways, which I just thought was such a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Rishi Sunak looked like a defeated man. I thought he looked a bit teary at the start when Beth Rigby was asking him questions about D-Day and the commemorations, and, you know, he admitted that he'd let people down. And to me, it looked like he was going to cry. It has been a very tough few weeks for him. And then Sir Keir Starmer, as you say, just very long, rambling answers. And then the question from the audience member who said, you know, I just think you're a political robot. Then he answered with a very long-winded question about his life of service, which I'm not sure is what you want to hear. I think he might be better just to own the fact that he isn't a laugher and a joker and just say, look, that's not my role here. My role is to take charge of the country and be very serious and get the job done, and I'm not here to be a comedian.
I mean, also, it is unfair to push him on things like, well, will council tax be raised at all over the next 5 years? You know, what's going on? And he quite rightly said, fuel duty. You know, is that going to be raised at all over the next 5 years? Well, of course you can't answer that. Of course you can't answer that. It's unrealistic. But he could have answered it better and just made it clearer. And I don't know, it was just a mess, I thought.
You weren't impressed?
Not impressed at all. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think about all of that. gbnews.com/your say. They did go head-to-head last night. As I say, the battle for the keys to Downing Street.
Well, the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, was held to account over tax rises in the next Parliament.
No tax rises in the next Parliament?
No tax rises needed in the plans in our manifesto.
In the plans?
No tax rises for working people. That's income tax, national insurance,
so you're
and VAT.
not ruling out. I just decode that for you guys, because when a politician says no plans, it does mean I might.
Well, Beth,
I've done this a bit. It does.
Well, of course it means he might. I mean, that irritates me slightly. Because, of course, you can't say exactly what you're going to do for the next 5 years before you're even elected into government. So that's unrealistic. We've got to be realistic with these politicians. Anyway, the Prime Minister reminded of his promise to bring down the national debt.
Promise number 3, reducing national debt. It's gone up since you made the pledge, hasn't it? It has.
Yes,
yeah.
But it was always meant to come down over time, and that was always the time. I know, but that.
What was it when you made the pledge?
But we measure our debt according to an independent body measures our debt.
It's higher now than it was when you made the pledge, right? It's high.
It was always forecast to be high. Let me be clear, Beth. I was never saying it would come down overnight.
See, that was very odd as well, because he just kept referring to the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, saying, yes, it hasn't come down, but the OBR says we're hitting those key pledges, which it didn't make any sense to me.
No.
I couldn't make sense of that.
And I think it's very, very telling, isn't it, the audience reaction as well, laughter throughout those answers. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer reminded everyone that his dad was a toolmaker.
Would you personally be happy to pay more tax?
Yes, of course.
OK.
But I've always paid my tax in full. But, you know, and I accept I earn a lot of money in the job I am now in. But when I grew up, my dad was a toolmaker. He worked in a factory. It's true. My mum was a nurse, and actually we couldn't make ends meet, which actually isn't a laughing matter.
Taking the audience to task there, wasn't he, really, for laughing at that answer?
Yeah, but do you know what? It's a valid point to say you come from a working background like that. It's perfectly valid. Has he just overplayed it, though?
I think the line is overplayed. I think that's what people are laughing about.
Yeah, because you do.
So much has been made of that line, yeah. So I think maybe that needs to be rested a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Labour HQ will be advising from here on in.
We shall see. Yeah, well, meanwhile, the Prime Minister once again said the Rwanda plan is ready to go.
What we've done is already started detaining people. Airfields on standby, planes are booked. The date for the first flight is out on the 24th, I think it is, of July. And the important point here is this is about establishing a deterrent. Because I believe that if people come here illegally, they shouldn't be able to stay. We need to have somewhere safe to remove them. And that's how we will stop the boats. And that's what Rwanda is about.
He did get a round of applause for that.
He did get a round of applause for that. But the question after that was, well, if they're going on July the 24th, why did you put the general election for now, for the 4th of July? Why wouldn't you let those planes take off first? Very, very interesting. Do let us know what you thought of last night's debate. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Of course, we'll bring you all the latest political promises. Labour and Plaid Cymru launched their manifestos today.
Well, let's speak now to the Deputy Editor for Spiked Online, Fraser Myers. Morning to you, Fraser. Lots to get through. What did you make of the performances last night from both Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer?
I thought it was quite painful for both of them, actually. I mean, I know the YouGov Snap poll suggested that Starmer was way ahead of Rishi Sunak. I mean, you can see why if you had to choose between the two, but I imagine a lot of people will be thinking none of the above. Yeah. I mean, it was probably the first time of this campaign that Starmer was really taken to task on his kind of flip-flop. Sort of slippery Starmer, the man who backed Corbyn, not just personally, you know, called him a friend.
That was very odd, actually, wasn't it? Because he said, well, he was asked, because he'd said Corbyn would make a good Prime Minister before the last election, and his response to that was, well, I didn't think we were going to win. Yeah. Which was really odd.
He said, yeah, that was sort of his get-out. That I thought it was fine because we wouldn't win, so it didn't matter, you know, if I put my name to those policies. But then, even after he lost, he said that he wanted to carry on all the same policies when he was pitching to the Labour members to become Labour leader, only to quite unceremoniously dump that entire platform. You know, the other thing I suppose you could think is, like, what was the difference between 2017 and 2019 in terms of Labour's policy offer? That was the Brexit second referendum. That was probably the single biggest disaster for the Labour Party, and Keir Starmer was the architect of that. So if he was so certain they would lose on that policy offer, why did he make it?
What did you make of the personality questions when that member of the audience said that he looked like a political robot, and then he gave that long-winded answer about his career of service?
Yes, and the member of the audience also said he answers questions like a solicitor, i.e. doesn't answer the questions. You kept getting the sense that Starmer just wanted to drag it back to the message, no matter how unrelated the message was. I mean, we just saw that clip of him saying, you know, dragging it back to "my father was a toolmaker," and clearly, you know, audiences have had enough of that. They've heard the line so many times. You know, not to say that it isn't genuine. It's true, of course. We like it when politicians talk about their background, but you want to almost learn something new about him. You want to, you know, feel a sense that you're. You want to feel that you're getting the real picture of him rather than hearing a sort of focus grouped message.
Yeah, we just didn't get any of that last night, did we? I mean, it's things like there were the tax questions, which in a sense I sort of think are a bit unrealistic. However, he still wouldn't give a straight answer, would he? I mean, that's the problem. No straight answer.
It was the sort of weasel words of "we have no plans," which means, you know, anything is possible. But you could always say, you know, look, we really don't want to do this, but circumstances could change. I mean, if you look at just the last 5 years, what has happened, you know, we've had the coronavirus pandemic, the energy crisis, we've left the EU, you know, all kinds of things that have happened, many of them, you know, completely unprecedented and something that no government could be prepared for. You could expect similar things to happen in the next 5 years. You could say, you know, barring an emergency, we don't want to do this. But he just... I think the sense is that he's just being vague and evasive, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And what did you make of Rishi Sunak's performance last night?
Rishi Sunak was pretty tetchy. He often gets tetchy when he's under pressure. I think that it was unfortunate that, you know, he was reminded about the D-Day incident. It's just not going anywhere for him. I think that that was probably one of the biggest misjudgments that any politician has made during an election campaign. I mean, who doesn't know, or who wouldn't know how important that anniversary is to people and wouldn't understand why it would upset people in the way that it did? Do you think, you know, what's he going to do next? Is he going to punch an NHS nurse or something? Do you have no sense of where the public are?
What I don't... Well, maybe it is because of the whole D-Day thing, but when this whole election campaign started, everyone was saying, wow, look at Sunak.
Yeah.
He's bouncing about, he's full of enthusiasm, he's going up visiting factories, and it's all this, you know, he's really giving it all that. And he just seemed last night utterly defeated.
Yes. I think actually the sort of energy that he has, you know, sort of, he described himself as buzzing the other day. I think he just mistakes, you know, hyperactivity or doing things for, you know, winning people over. I mean, he left D-Day to be at that interview. He probably, in his sort of spreadsheet mind, thinks, if I tick off that interview, that's a few more, you know, that's a few more people seeing my policies. He has this long list of policies, you know, national service and various other things that are supposed to be eye-catching, they're supposed to win us over. It's as if he thinks, you know, quality over quantity. We know they don't add up to a coherent programme for government. Most people don't think any of them will be delivered. But I guess, yes, he just sees them as, well, I've got this, you must like that, it's polled well, why don't you like it?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah,
Fraser Myers.
Bit of a washout.
Yes.
Not you, Fraser, but the whole thing last night, I think.
And lots of the viewers saying exactly that, Stephen. Andy Lamb says, roll on the 4th of July, get it over with. Keith Garland, my reaction to the election campaign is none of the above. And Ben Purdy says, Starmer keeps saying his father was a toolmaker. What he doesn't say is his father was the owner of the factory who hired and fired people at will. He's using it to prey on people's emotions.
Well, keep your thoughts coming through. Well, the campaign trail, of course, continued up and down the country yesterday. Let's have a look at some of the key moments.
We would argue that you want to make, you don't want to have somebody receive a supermajority. And in this case, of course, the concern would be that if Keir Starmer were to go into number 10, it will either be Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer. There's no other outcome to this election. And that power was in some way unchecked. It would be very bad news for people in this country.
Well, what's important is that when I look at the performance of other small European countries, independent countries, I see them delivering a stronger economic performance and stronger public finances than the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom model is broken. It is absolutely broken.
All of our plans are fully costed, fully funded. There will be no increase in income tax, in national insurance or VAT.
Liberal Democrats have some really attractive, positive ideas to rebuild our economy and help people with the cost of living.
Voters in this country know that to mend broken Britain, we have to invest in our future. Greens have the courage to say that we would change the tax system to make it fairer and make this investment possible.
I don't know what to make of Ed Davey.
Wow. He's having a lot of fun, isn't he, on this election train?
I just don't get what he's trying to do with that.
I think he's trying to go viral, and I think he's trying to gather momentum on social media by going viral. I think that's the only sense I can make of it.
It's just, and I've said this before, that what I find really difficult is the fact that when you interview him, it's very serious. This is what the Lib Dems need to do. It's all very, very serious. And then he goes and, jumps into a pond. Or goes down a water slide.
I was struck by that when he launched his manifesto. I thought, he's been very serious today.
Yeah.
Because he's made himself the clown of this election trail.
I think, well, no, I shouldn't say. But I just think it's just very odd. I don't know how that wins votes.
And I don't know how well that sits with people, actually. Those who won't forgive him for his role in the post office scandal, I think people find that it doesn't leave a very good taste in their mouth. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, right, away from politics, because Europe's facing extreme weather conditions. Temperatures are soaring in Turkey, Greece and Cyprus. Spain has been hit with really heavy flooding.
Yes, this comes as hundreds of firefighters have been battling blazes in the south of France, with emergency services reportedly saying they hadn't anticipated the strength of the fire.
Let's talk to weather journalist Nathan Rao. Morning to you, Nathan.
Good morning.
What's going on?
I know there is a lot going on in Europe, and there's a huge contrast really across Europe. We were talking just now about the rain in Mallorca, where they had more than 50 litres per square metre of rain falling at Palma Airport on...
50 litres?
Per square metre, yeah, that's a huge amount of rain and much above the average that they would expect. They've had about up to 3 inches per hour over there, and they usually get about 1 inch per 2 months in Palma at this time of year. So a lot of rain has fallen over there as a big storm came in a couple of nights ago. Now, that storm is moving eastwards across Europe now and is going to hit the Balkan states, where there are red warnings in place for severe thunderstorms and hail. Now, that is the first story. The second story, of course, is if you move further east and south in Europe, is the heat, where temperatures across Turkey and Greece and Cyprus could reach 45 degrees this week, which is really hot. So there is a huge contrast across Europe, including, of course, the UK, where we're in the colder bit of it, where we're getting a June that feels a bit more like November.
Yeah, what's going on with us, Nathan?
Yeah, we're not really enjoying the glorious summer which we may have been hoping for a couple of months ago. And we always talk about three things when we're talking about the weather and what meteorologists are looking at, and that is the jet stream, low pressure and high pressure. And really what we've had is the jet stream, which is further south than we'd expect it at this time of year, and we have had high pressure to the west of us and low pressure to the east. And if you imagine sort of two spinning plates causing a funnel, that's been bringing cold air down from the Arctic, and that is why it's so chilly at the moment. It is going to change.
Good. When?
But I wouldn't smile just yet, because the change might not be what you are hoping for. The change, I know, sorry. The change is going to set in today. High pressure is going to nudge in a little bit, but it's not really going to win. And low pressure, which is what we don't want, low pressure brings the unsettled weather. That is pretty much going to stick with us for the next 10 days. A little bit warmer, but unsettled, very unsettled, I'm afraid, right through till June. And the long-range outlooks really look at June, saying, really don't hope for much, and let's look at July and hope it brings something better. So, in
terms of that long range, I mean, I know the longer range you go, the less reliable the forecasts are. But is is it indicating that we will get a little bit of a summer?
Yes, there is. If you look at the Met Office's 3-month outlook, and the Met Office is very clear about this. This is an outlook because you can never pinpoint what the weather is going to do 3 months ahead. But on their 3-month outlook, which is really designed to help, it's called a contingency plan. It's designed to help local authorities and things, plan around the weather. They say there is a 2 times the normal chance of hotter than average conditions between now and August. So that's 2.5 actually times what we would expect, and a lower chance of cooler than average conditions. So there is hope there, but that is, that is an outlook. It's not guaranteed. And the outlook for June, and that's 2 weeks, which is really with any certainty how far ahead you can predict, is pretty rubbish. So my overall assessment would be, if you're planning to do anything nice in the outdoors, leave it for a couple of weeks, and then let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that July delivers.
Right.
And don't blame me if it doesn't.
Right.
All right, thanks, Nathan.
All right.
On the positive side,
miserable news.
I was being told by my weather app the other day that we were going to have thunderstorms where I live on Tuesday. Torrential rain and thunderstorms. Not a drop of rain.
Oh, well, there you go. So we can live in hope. You may be wrong, Nathan, yet.
Thunderstorms are notoriously difficult to pin down. So whenever you see a thunderstorm warning, it's only you might see one there.
Right.
OK.
Well, we didn't get any. So that was nice. It shut it down yesterday. There you go. You can't have it all. Right, shall we have a look at some sort of... Well, I think it's happier news. I'm slightly sceptical. Rory McIlroy and his wife have decided to give their relationship another go. He filed for divorce just a month ago.
Yes, the couple have been together for 7 years and share a 4-year-old daughter. And they said to have been excited for a new beginning as a family.
It all comes ahead of the US Open, with many thinking this decision will boost his state of mind during the tournament.
Well, joining us now to discuss all of this is divorce coach Sarah Davison. Good to see you this morning. What do you make of this story then?
Well, I think it's really good news, and I do think that it is going to give Rory a boost for his tournament ahead. I think that a lot of people don't realise just how traumatic divorce actually is. And then when they make that decision, especially when they go public on the big scale that they have, I think the reality starts to hit home. And the reality is that it is very, very difficult going through a divorce. In fact, it's known as the second most traumatic life experience we go through after death of a loved one. And many people don't know that until they're thrown into it. I know I certainly didn't before I got catapulted into my own divorce. The reality is that you are facing life on your own. So you're spending more time on your own, you're sleeping on your own in the bed, you're shopping and cooking for one. If you're suddenly a single parent, as they would be, again, the roles are split. And that's before you start thinking about changes in lifestyle. Maybe for them, it's not so drastic with the money they have, but for a lot of people, it's a huge change in lifestyle. So we don't really expect the impact that you get when you're suddenly thrown into it. So quite common, actually, for people to change their minds and give it another go when they start to face the real reality.
Yeah, but when you've announced it, especially so publicly, so that's an issue when you're in the spotlight as these two are. But also to say, well, it's more difficult than we expected, doesn't address the problems which led to the decision in the first place.
No, but this is another really interesting thing, Stephen. You bring up a great point, because when we're going through a breakup, when the relationship is breaking down, what are we focusing on? We're focusing on all the negative emotions. We're focusing on the things that upset us about our partner, the things they're doing that are grating on us or making us upset or angry or hurting us. But actually, when we separate, our value for our partner actually increases in a lot of cases, because the way we're wired means that we're focusing on all the good things we're missing out on. That's why a lot of people stay in heartbreak and get stuck in heartbreak. Even though they know that partner's not really good for them, our mind sort of filters out all the bad things and focuses on the good things. And we remember the things that were good and worry about the things we might be missing out on. So I think quite often we do see that. But obviously, if there are issues in the relationship, then they're not going to be solved without a lot of work. And that actually needs a commitment from both parties to decide they're going to work through this together. And especially if you've got got children, it's worth giving it a go and doing everything you can to save it. But maybe the amount of trauma and upset and disruption it was causing is just too much when he's going into something so important right now for his career. And maybe this is why it's like, let's just park this, let's get back together, take away that initial heartbreak right now so we can focus, and then maybe we'll see they'll readjust it if they can't work it through later on.
Sarah, does it say something about our society or where relationships are at now, where people just give up? They think that they can do better. Perhaps social media has something to do with that. And the D word in marriage might get thrown around a bit more than it might have been thrown around before.
Oh, absolutely, Ellie. I see this all the time. People, if they have an argument, they'll throw the divorce word into that conversation. And I think we live in a highly disposable society these days. So if we don't like something, we're going to change it. We're going to change it quick. We're not going to think about it too much. And I think, again, this is where the problem is. And when you look at dating apps, that is another big issue, because it's actually scientifically proven that if you have to choose between one or two other partners or anything in life, if you've got a choice between 2 or 3 things, when you make your decision, you're statistically more likely to be happy with that decision because your choice is smaller. Whereas if you're on a dating app and there's thousands of potential partners for you, you might pick one and then try that, but your mind will always be thinking, oh, maybe the others would be better, or there's more opportunities out there. This person doesn't tick all my boxes, which again is unrealistic in a lot of cases. So we want to look at that. Then you're looking to think about all the other people, which causes so much more dissatisfaction with your choice if you've got more options. So if you look at the dating pool right now, that is often why people are circling, and you see the same faces time and time again on those dating apps.
Oh, there you go. Well, look, best of luck to them. That's all you can say. Sarah Davison, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. I don't know, I'm
with you, though. I think if you put it out there publicly, you've basically alerted the whole world that there's serious problems in your marriage. Yeah, the front page of the Daily Mail today is saying that this is Rory McIlroy's team have told him to give the marriage another 6 months. Cynics might say that's just because he's about to...
Well, I'm slightly sceptical about saying, you know, you need to give it another go because you're about to start the US Open.
The US Open.
It's not... It's a bit odd.
But you never know. Right now.
Maybe Sarah's right and he's just realised after being apart from her for a month that he doesn't want to be apart from her. So...
Well, other reports in the media today say he's only just realised how much money he would lose. There you go. That's another cynical way of looking at it. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Right, let's get a check on the weather. Here's Aidan.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a chilly start out there this morning for many of us, but it is going to turn cloudier, breezier and, from the west, wetter. Now, we've got some early sunshine for eastern England, northern Scotland as well. Many places turn cloudier through the morning, and for Northern Ireland, western England, western Scotland and Wales, we'll see outbreaks of rain move in. By lunchtime, many places are damp and breezy with some heavy bursts of rain, particularly for Wales, the southwest and Northern Ireland. That's going to make it feel unpleasant, 14 or 15 Celsius. East of England, mostly dry, increasingly cloudy. Northern Scotland, though, keeps the sunshine until late in the day, because many places elsewhere are going to see the rain moving through. Now, across much of England and Wales at 5 p.m, it's damp with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be on and off, but it will be heaviest towards the west. Northern Ireland, just seeing the rain starting to clear at this stage. But for the Central Belt, for much of the Highlands, Grampians, Western Isles as well, we'll see outbreaks of rain. Northern Scotland keeps the bright weather until after the sun goes down. And even into the evening, it's going to stay mostly dry here. Elsewhere, the rain clears to showers, and the showers become frequent across southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland overnight. It's going to be a breezy night as well, so with the breeze, a change in wind direction compared with the northerlies we've had recently, and the cloud It's going to be a milder start to Friday, but it is going to be an unsettled start. The more persistent rain by this stage into the Northern Isles, the far north and west of the mainland of Scotland, and elsewhere, frequent showers developing as the day progresses. In between the downpours, there will be some brighter or sunnier spells. Not everywhere will get soaking, but for many places, I would keep an umbrella handy. There are going to be a lot of showers around.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, time for the Great British Giveaway now, and your chance to make this summer really special with more than £16,000 worth of prizes to be won.
Yes, that's £15,000 in cash and then a whole host of treats. But of course, you do have to be in it to win it. So here are all the details that you need.
It's our Summer Spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, best of luck to you.
Still to come, do stay with us. We've got all the latest sport with Paul Coit. That's next.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's Newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said stump.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel. Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What time is it?
6:33.
Good morning. Paul Coy is here with all the sport. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, I'm all right, but I'm doing better than John Stones.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I don't know what... I think he's got a bit of a dicky tummy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
He had an injury. So John Stones, central defender for England, probably the most experienced central defender we've got. Very important that he's there and then he's playing over in Germany because the Euros begin tomorrow. But England don't play until Sunday. So John Stones been kept in isolation over a sickness bug. So he had an injury that he got against Iceland, then seems to have recovered. Tuesday, he was in training. Wednesday, being kept away from everybody because you don't want it to pass around.
No.
So hopefully he'll be back training today, but we'll have to see.
Yes, fingers
We'll
crossed.
have to see.
So it all kicks off tomorrow.
It does.
What have we got to look forward to?
Well, it's the first game. So it's Germany, who are the hosts, will play Scotland. So very excited about that. Who knows how Scotland are going to do? I don't know whether this is a good thing for Scotland to start off against Germany or whether it's a bad thing. I mean, whenever you play Germany in Germany, you wouldn't sort of really get your hopes up too much. But anyway, it's great that they're opening up the tournament. So why not? And often in big tournaments, you'll have the host will have a tricky start. It often begins that way. And also the successful teams are all about momentum. So it may start slowly for Germany. I'm just looking on the bright side of Scotland here. But anyway, 8 p.m. tomorrow, and then there's lots and lots of games. Then we start getting into 3 games a day. Okay. I'm not going to be able to have my nap. I'll just be watching football all the time. So we're very excited. Sunday is when England play, so that'll be Serbia.
Right.
We should do well at that, right?
Should be.
Yeah.
Should be. Yeah.
Quick prediction.
It's get round. It's always interesting, not only how the football is, how the momentum is around the football, but also around support as well, because it's the first bit, the group stage, is always like, oh, yeah, I'll have a little look at it. Oh, yeah, I'll keep it on. It's only when we start getting towards the knockout stage, should we get there, that then things start to ramp up and then you start seeing more flags around. So we'll see how things go. Okay. But anyway, can't wait for it to begin.
Can we talk about Keely Hodgkinson? Because she's been a bit under the weather as well, but she's nevertheless done well.
I don't know whether she's been near John Stones, but I think she was a bit under the weather as well. She ran in the 800 metres yesterday. She was such a hot favourite to win the 800 metres gold at the European Championships yesterday. 33-1 on, which for non-betting people means to win £1, you'd have to put 33 quid on. That's how much of a favourite she was. But she was very unwell, and so it got to about 10 minutes before. They were in the call room, which is where everybody sits before they go out to the race. Everybody looks everybody up and down, sort of, nobody says anything. But she was unsure whether she was going to run. But she went out, did fine, looked like she might get caught towards the end, but she's won the gold, which is great going into the Olympics because she's the Olympic silver medalist. But it's interesting, Sally Gunnell was exactly the same. Back in 92, or it might have been the 93 World Championship when she won the when she broke the world record as well, because she was unwell. And it often happens when you get athletes, I don't know whether it's just nerves or whether it's something else, that they feel really unwell, and then when they go out after that, they go out and break a world record, because it's almost like they're trying to compensate for their illness. Try a little harder. Do you know what I mean? There's something in that.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I'm glad she's all right.
When you feel under the weather,
yes,
you're really excellent on here. I've seen it when you've been a bit under the weather, and I think it's almost like you're trying extra hard.
Do you think?
You're not under the weather today, are you?
I am under the weather today.
Oh, you are? OK.
I am. No, I'll tell you what I did, because I took some really strong painkillers last night.
Did you?
My teeth are killing me. And I feel really sick today.
Oh, do you?
You know when they just don't sit right?
He needs some toast, I think.
Are you talking about the teeth don't sit right?
Stomach.
And the other teeth I don't think the teeth are sitting right. I need a new pair. They're going to send these back.
Yeah, I would. I'd send them back. Because See, they're slipping around.
They are slipping a little bit.
Well, look, as long as you're OK. Are you OK?
No, I'm not really, but
OK, fine. I'll look after you.
Struggling on.
But you wouldn't know he's doing great.
You'd never know because he's doing a Sally Gunnell, that's why.
I'd never mention it.
No, of course not. It was only because I happened to mention Sally Gunnell. It's only because.
We are out of time.
Listen, you've got to have the dogs. It's like 20 seconds. You done with the dogs?
Yeah, go on then.
Put the dogs on, for crying out loud. LA Dodgers Stadium. At the baseball, you've got to see this, it was a dog day. So they had in so everybody... Look at this. How great is this?
Goodness.
I don't care what's coming up next. We're not missing the dogs, for crying out loud. There it is. LA Dodgers do it. Pops in the park. Everybody brings their dogs to baseball.
So everybody brings their dog?
Bring your dog. I mean, that doesn't look like a real dog. It looks like a man in a dog suit, that one in the front.
The one in the front is very cute.
That's perfect. Everybody should do that.
I think we should do that on here. Bring our dogs to work and we'll just sit the dogs in.
That would be brilliant. Yeah, you're on. We'll do it. I love that.
Oh, look at them.
Let's do that every hour, Paul.
Look at
that was worth it.
Look at
So
this.
worth
The dog, I thought, oh, he's like, Dad, what are you doing? Dad.
They're all having a Lion King moment, all just being lifted up.
They're all bouncing up and down.
Very
it's like the
cute.
yellow wall they do in Dortmund. Everybody's up and down with the dogs.
Brilliant.
Love that.
Would Rex
That's my
like
dog
that?
impression, by the way.
I couldn't pick Rex up,
Going
but
to
I'd give
the
it a
baseball
whirl.
game?
They'd probably love it, yeah.
Oh, bless him.
Right, that's it. Enough of you.
Sausages.
Thank you very much indeed. Sausages. Oh, that's showing your age. We've got the papers with Lewis, Oakley and Emma Wolf in a couple of minutes.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A9 is closed each way between Aviemore and Slough after an accident. In Aberdeenshire, the A90 is blocked westbound by an accident between Lawrence Kirk and Lothermere. In West Yorkshire, the A647 remains closed each way along Leeds Road in Bradford after a fire. In Worcestershire, the A448 is closed each way between Redditch and Bromsgrove for an investigation. In Newport, Commercial Road at Monbank is closed for an investigation. On the M25 in Essex, there are clockwise queues from junction 30 for the A13 towards the QE2 bridge after an accident. In West Sussex, the A24 is blocked northbound where there's an injured deer in the road between the Hoppos Park and Ride roundabout and Broadbridge Heath roundabout at Horsham. And in Hampshire, the A326 is closed in both directions between Netley Marsh and Colbury after an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Plenty of mixers, plenty of lovely gin.
Yes.
What have you got here for us? Just explain what you've brought in.
So today I'm going to be presenting the Cotswolds Dry Gin and the Cotswolds Wildflower Gin.
Ooh.
So the first one that was introduced into our market was the Cotswolds Dry Gin. Now we have 9 different types of botanicals. We introduce into our pot still. We introduce well, obviously juniper berries because it's a London Dry. Angelica roots and coriander seeds, giving it that little limey flavour. Also, cardamom seeds, then black peppercorn, giving it a little spice.
Ooh.
And then the part that is more interesting that regards to the pouring, we have the grapefruit peel and the lime peel. We're going to start with the Cotswolds Dry, okay? So the first one introduced.
So Ellie was taking the mick out of me this morning because I said my favourite gin was, what is it, pink lemonade?
You like a pink gin and lemonade, yes.
You called me, I'm going to say what you said. You said that's a bit girly.
As you see, it turned into cloudy. Those are the oils of the spices because we don't filter it. Our gin is completely unfiltered.
Got
okay?
it.
I love this. It's 11:52. It's never too early. Cheers.
Cheers.
And would you have any, this sounds very juvenile, would you have any snacks with gin? Or does it ruin it?
Olives.
Ah, you can tell your culture.
It depends on how you're drinking it and where you are, like what you're actually going to do with it. But you can have pretty much all sorts. As long as it stays on the salty side, that's what I would go for personally.
A salty snack.
Yeah, that's what I would go for.
So olives, would you say, is that a good choice? Or crisps, nuts?
They're quite salty, olives, aren't they?
It depends on your taste, really. Like, personally, I wouldn't go for it, but I have seen... And the culture behind gin is drastically increased over the years. The flavours are all different.
That's really good.
Exactly. You see what I mean?
Oh, very nice.
Like that zesty, floral kind of flavour coming through. They're absolutely stunning, aren't they?
The People's Channel.
welcome back to Breakfast. We're going through the papers now with writer and podcaster Lewis Oakley and writer and journalist Emma Wolfe. Good morning, you two.
Good morning.
And Emma, let's start with the Guardian front page, shall we? And this is Rishi Sunak's closest parliamentary aide placed a £100 bet on a July election date just days before the announcement.
Not the wisest thing to have done, really. You could have thought about this. Craig Williams, this is, the parliamentary private secretary to the Prime Minister, seemed to have known something that we didn't know, possibly. Anyway, he placed a bet with Ladbrokes just a few days before the Prime Minister made his announcement. Ladbrokes raised a red flag and they referred it to the Gambling Commission because Williams was, his name, flagged up as a politically exposed person. I mean, was he not aware of this himself? He calls it a flutter. He said, I put a flutter on the general election date. Kind of, you know, it's no big deal. It was just a flutter. I think it's what you say when you're having an affair, isn't it? Oh, it's just a flutter. I was just having a... and he said, I should have thought how it looks. Well, it looks really, really bad, by the way.
Yeah.
Using confidential information to gain an unfair advantage may constitute a criminal offence. So basically, this is sort of more woe, I would say, for the Prime Minister and sort of adds to the general calamity of this general election campaign for him.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you sort of, at a time where you just want to think that people are competent and running the country properly, these kind of stories cropping up, it just makes you cringe. Now, I think it adds to this narrative, whether fairly or unfairly, that, you know, that people are being dishonest at the top of government and that people are in it for self-interest, and that's really not what you want to be projecting at this time. It doesn't say in this piece how much he's in line to win from the £100 bet, does it?
He would have got 500. If it was what they say the odds were 1 to 5 or something, he would have. It's the biggest payout would have been £500. So it's not a huge sum, which to me raises the question: why would you bother? And like you say, Lewis, why was his mind not on the job? There was quite a lot going on in those few days before. I can't even remember now, but when Rishi Sunak announced it in that downpour, I mean, there's a lot to do. Right? There's a lot for the Prime Minister and his private secretary to be getting on with. You're absolutely right. What were they doing? Why was he doing this, even if his judgment was so off that he couldn't see this was totally inappropriate, that someone in the inner circles of government should be making bets about the date of the general election.
I think this just adds to that general sense of we're just tired of these people now. I mean, you know, it reminded me for some reason of, you know, there was the texting scandal where they were sending pictures to this unknown number, and it's just like, surely you have more competence than to do these things.
Well. Right, Lewis, let's have a look at the front of the Telegraph, should we? The number of people having to wait for cancer treatment.
This is a really worrying story. So more than 380,000 patients have had to wait longer than 2 months to start their cancer treatment. Cancer research is saying the election really must be a turning point now for cancer. About half of cancer centres are experiencing routine weekly delays to treat patients. We know here that timing is everything with cancer. The earlier you catch it, the earlier you start treatment, the better the outcomes. So the fact that these figures are so alarming, I mean, it really does need to be something we're talking about in the election. And I think, you know, we've talked a lot about the NHS in particular in the election so far, but I think that laser focus on cancer really hasn't been there. And we know, compared to other European nations, we don't do as well statistically. The piece is blaming a lack of staff and diagnostic equipment. So, I guess the hope is that a plan to solve the entirety of the NHS will lift this as well. But I do think we need to put, this affects 1 in 2 people. That is terrifying. So we really need to have a big focus on this. And I really would like to see our leaders talking about it in the next few weeks of the election campaign.
Exactly. And when we've all made such a big deal, rightly so, about the King and about the Princess of Wales, and we've all talked about their bravery and coming out and all of that. And as you say, Lewis, we are way behind other European countries in terms of mortality and treatment and getting people in, getting the diagnosis and getting treatment started quickly. We've got the centres, we've got the machinery, we've got the technology, we've certainly got the scientific expertise in this country, but something is going on. I don't even think it's the funding. I think it's literally just that the NHS is, as you say, not fit for purpose.
Emma, this is a really upsetting story, isn't it? Caught my eye this morning. It's the mother of Barnaby Webber talking about her past year of hell. Yeah,
so it's a year to the day that Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates were brutally stabbed and murdered by this sort of violent schizophrenic Valdo Kalakani. And Barney's mother is just opening up and talking. Emma Webber is talking about what that's been like. She says our family's been blown apart. She's constantly facing those first everything without him, those first moments, those first, you know, her younger son's 16th birthday, that kind of thing. She leaves his bedroom light on at night. And she says the grief is so deep that you cannot see beyond it. And also, which I found really interesting, she talked about not forgiving her son's killer. She says, I can't bring it in my heart to forgive him. I don't want to forgive him, you know. And I think one can understand that. You know, many families do, and that's amazing that they can do that. But many families, I think, and victims of, you know, family victims can't.
Yeah.
And there were just such terrible failings by the police, by the NHS, by the mental health services. Valdo Calacano was known as a violent schizophrenic. He was on the radar. He was asking for treatment at some point. He was in prison at some point. The fact that he was out on the streets on that night a year ago must be devastating for the family.
I mean, as a parent, I mean, with stories like this, if I weren't doing the news reviews, I wouldn't have been able to read it because it's too upsetting. And I think that sometimes, you know, we hear about these stabbings and they make the front page, but it's very rare we get a front page like this, which is talking about this is the impact. Like, I'm still turning his light on, and we need to have those discussions about what it's like to live afterwards. This never goes away. And as a parent, you know, I am terrified of what could happen to my kids out there, out and about. You know, I don't think it's very safe. And the impact of knives, it is something, you know, and as you say, there were a lot of failings that kind of had an accumulative effect in this case, but the violence we see on the streets now, it just is terrifying if you're raising kids.
Yeah, no, so it's not a good state to be in. Look, we're going to leave you two just for the time being. Thank you very much indeed, because Labour's National Campaign Coordinator, Pat McFadden, joins us now. Pat, as always, it's good to see you. What did you make of the debate last night? Because I have to say, Keir Starmer was not impressive, was he? He just didn't seem to answer any questions last night, and that's not a good look.
Well, that's certainly not the viewers' verdict who watched the debate. You know, they do these snap polls after these debates, and viewers had Keir Starmer winning the debate.
Well, yeah, but to be fair, Pat, you know, they had a choice of two, and it's not to say that he didn't come out on top in terms of, you know, who did best on the night, but it still doesn't answer the main issue here, that he was asked lots of questions which he just evaded. We didn't get clear answers. It's not what people want.
Look, I thought he did really well in the debate, and today we're publishing our manifesto. It's our plan to change the country. It's an exciting day for us in the campaign. When you are asking for people's support, they want to know your manifesto, they want to know what you're going to do, and that's the document that we are publishing this morning, and it will set out a responsible, costed plan to change the country, start to get the waiting list down, have more teachers in our schools, secure our borders, start on that transition to cleaner energy, and start growing the economy. And that last point is, for us, the missing piece in this election debate so far, because we've had a lot of debates about the government budget, but we haven't actually had a debate about how to have a stronger economy. And that's going to be at the heart of the manifesto that we are publishing this morning.
Can I take you back to last night's debate, though, because I wanted to get your thoughts on a question from the audience about Sir Keir Starmer being a political robot. And somebody else in the audience said that Sir Keir Starmer answered questions like a solicitor, essentially implying that he wasn't answering them at all. There does seem to be a lack of excitement, a lack of enthusiasm about Sir Keir Starmer. It's not like 1997 and the excitement that was seen then for Tony Blair. Even Nigel Farage at the Leaders' Debate last week saying to Angela Rayner that Sir Keir Starmer is Blair without the flair. Does it concern you that Sir Keir Starmer seems to lack the charisma?
Well, I'm one of the few people probably around the Labour Party who was there in 1997. I travelled every day with Tony Blair in the 1997 campaign as a young aide. I had a full head of red hair then. That's gone now. And it's different times. And look, I think after the chaos that we've had over the past few years, 5 prime ministers, 7 chancellors, all the changes in policy, the sort of mad mini budget that we had that put up everybody's mortgages. A sober, serious leader is exactly what the country needs right now. So I don't think he's trying to be in the entertainment business. He's trying to be a sober, serious leader. And that's what he'll be if he's elected on the 4th of July.
But with all of that, we need transparency. I mean, we always hear from people trying to get into office that transparency is important. We weren't getting transparency over, you know, why he said Jeremy Corbyn would be a good leader, a good Prime Minister ahead of in the 2019 election. On the taxes issues, to say, well, we're not raising taxes for working people. I mean, that's the most obvious caveat to throw in. Why can't we have some clarity, some transparency about what he actually means?
Well, look, let me take the point you made there about Jeremy Corbyn. You know, I've been a Labour MP for 19 years under different leaders. And the point I'd make is that all of our major political parties, my party, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party too, they're not owned by their leaders. They're bigger than their leaders. Every leader of a political party is standing on the shoulders of others. And you know, there've been leaders I've supported and leaders I've not supported so much. But the thing that was always in my mind, and the thing that's in Keir Starmer's mind when he's a candidate before, is there will be a time after that leader. And that's where we are today, with a very changed Labour.
A good point, well made, Pat. I'm sorry we've got to leave it there. We're out of time, but thank you.
Let's get the weather now with Aidan.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a chilly start out there this morning for many of us, but it is going to turn cloudier, breezier and, from the west, wetter. Now, we've got some early sunshine for eastern England, northern Scotland as well. Many places turn cloudier through the morning, and for Northern Ireland, western England, western Scotland and Wales, we'll see outbreaks of rain move in. By lunchtime, many places are damp and breezy with some heavy bursts of rain, particularly for Wales, the southwest and Northern Ireland. That's going to make it feel unpleasant, 14 or 15 Celsius. East of England, mostly dry, increasingly cloudy. Northern Scotland, though, keeps the sunshine until late in the day, because many places elsewhere are going to see the rain moving through. Now, across much of England and Wales at 5 p.m. it's damp with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be on and off, but it will be heaviest towards the west. Northern Ireland, just seeing the rain starting to clear at this stage. But for the Central Belt, for much of the Highlands, Grampians, Western Isles as well, we'll see outbreaks of rain. Northern Scotland keeps the bright weather until after the sun goes down. And even into the evening, it's going to stay mostly dry here. Elsewhere, the rain clears to showers, and the showers become frequent across southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland overnight. It's going to be a breezy night as well, so with the breeze, a change in wind direction compared with the northerlies we've had recently, and the cloud, it's going to be a milder start to Friday, but it is going to be an unsettled start. The more persistent rain by this stage into the Northern Isles, the far north and west of the mainland of Scotland, and elsewhere, frequent showers developing as the day progresses. In between the downpours, there will be some brighter or sunnier spells. Not everywhere will get soaking, but for many places, I would keep an umbrella handy. There are going to be a lot of showers around.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Aberdeenshire, the A90 is closed southbound from Lawrence Kirk to North Waterbridge after an accident. In West Yorkshire, the A647 remains closed southbound along Leeds Road in Bradford after a fire. In Worcestershire, the A448 is closed each way between Redditch and Bromsgrove for an investigation. In Newport, Commercial Road at Monbank is closed for an investigation. In Kent, on the A249, there are southbound queues towards roadworks just before junction 5 of the M2 at the Stockbury roundabout in Sittingbourne. on the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues towards the M25 because of roadworks, and in Hampshire, the A326 is closed in both directions between Netley Marsh and the A35 at Colbury after an accident involving a car and a lorry. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're making this summer funner, with 3 incredible prizes to be won. First, a fantastic £15,000 in tax-free cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, there's the latest iPhone 15 with a brand new set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. The summer fun could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you, 7 o'clock, Thursday, the 13th of June. Today, the battle for number 10. Sir Keir Starmer wins a snap poll after a TV debate with the Prime Minister. And that's as Rishi Sunak is taken to task over D-Day.
The Prime Minister's parliamentary private secretary is under fire after it was reported he placed a £100 bet on a July election date just days before the official announcement.
Rory McIlroy U-turns on his divorce from his wife Erica just 1 month after making it all public, where we heard from a relationship expert earlier on.
Flash flooding, wildfires and scorching temperatures hit Europe as Britain experiences cold weather under the Arctic jet stream.
All petrol and diesel vehicles should be banned from Britain's roads by 2035. That's according to the Green Party anyway. We're going to be asking, is it the right way forward?
With summer apparently upon us, many of you are preparing to go abroad. But which airlines experience the most delays? Stay tuned to find out.
And in the sport this morning, the Euros begin tomorrow. England defender John Stones has been kept away from the rest of the squad with a sickness bug. Keely Hodgkinson, she was feeling a bit under the weather as well last night, but won the 800-metre gold in the European Athletics Championships. And would Australia resort to dirty tricks to get England knocked out of the T20 World Cup? What do you think?
The winds will change direction during the next couple of days. It's becoming less cold, but not necessarily less wet. I'll have the full forecast in just a moment.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Loads of you on the views this morning saying, why aren't you talking about reform? Well, that's because we've been talking about the debate last night, of which, of course, Reform, nor any other party, apart from the Labour and the Conservatives were a part. However, there is a GB News People's poll, which we've just received copies of. It was released last night, apparently, but we've just had copies of it. and looking at parties that you would vote for if there was a general election tomorrow. Conservatives 19%, Labour 39%, Lib Dems 10%, Reform 17%. So that's just 2 points behind the Conservatives. But this is the interesting one, and I don't know why it's different. I can't work it out, really. But the question was, imagine you could choose any of the following to run the country after the election. Who would you choose? Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives, 9%. Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, 15%. Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, 22%. So Labour was still winning on that. But Reform Party coming second.
That's interesting. I suppose that's if we didn't have first past the post system and you could vote for anyone and anyone could be Prime Minister. Who would you vote for?
Yeah, but that's...
And in that sense, Reform came second in that poll.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting, actually. Of course, there was a poll last week. It's why we need these poll of polls. There was a poll last week saying Reform was down on 13% to Tories 21 or 22. But in this one, again, the backup, even in the sort of main poll, if you like, there's still just only 2 points behind the Conservatives. Which, is that going to guarantee a win for Labour as a result, splitting that Tory vote to one side? That's the argument. Nigel Farage has already said, well, Labour's already won. It's all about who forms the opposition.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting point.
And we are going to see another debate tonight, of course, aren't we? It's going to be very similar to the one we saw last week. Well, in fact, it's exactly the same. I think it's 7 people, isn't it, Fraser? Fraser's nodding, which means I'm correct. But it's Angela Rayner, Penny Mordaunt, Nigel Farage, and then leaders of the other parties as well. So that will be on tonight. We'll be able to dissect that a bit more tomorrow morning.
Oh, look forward to that.
Anyway,
Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer went head-to-head last night as they tried to win the keys to Downing Street.
Well, the leader of the opposition was held to account over tax rises in the next Parliament.
No tax rises in the next Parliament.
No tax rises needed in the plans in our manifesto.
In the plans?
No tax rises for working people. That's income tax, national insurance,
so you're
and VAT.
not ruling out. I just decode that for you guys, because when a politician says no plans, it does mean I might.
Well, Beth,
I've done this a bit. It does.
The Prime Minister was reminded of his promise to bring down the national debt.
Promise number 3, reducing national debt. It's gone up since you made the pledge, hasn't it? It has.
Yes, but it was always meant to come down over time, and that was always the time.
I know, but what was it when you made the pledge?
But we measure our debt according to an independent body measures our debt.
But it's higher now than it was when you made the pledge, right? It's high.
It was always forecast to be high. Let me be clear, Beth. I was never saying it would come down overnight.
Whilst Keir Starmer reminded everyone that his dad was a tool maker.
Would you personally be happy to pay more tax?
Yes, of course.
OK.
I've always paid my tax in full. But, you know, and I accept I earn a lot of money in the job I am now in. But when I grew up, my dad was a tool maker. He worked in a factory. It's true. My mum was a nurse, and actually we couldn't make ends meet, which actually isn't a laughing matter.
Yeah, his dad was... Oh, heck. Obviously, that went down like a lead balloon with the audience. And it's not that they're not sympathetic in a way to the plight of people who can't make ends meet, because a lot of them in the audience will be in exactly that position. It's just... It's a line that's been pushed out once too often, I think.
So. I think you might need to give that one a little bit of a rest.
Yeah, mine just was the same could be said for the Rwanda plan, could it? Rishi Sunak said it's ready to go.
What we've done is already started detaining people. Airfield's on standby, planes are booked. The date for the first flight is out on the 24th, I think it is, of July. And the important point here is this is about establishing a deterrent, because I believe that if people come here illegally, they shouldn't be able to stay. We need to have somewhere safe to remove them, and that's how we will stop the boats. And that's what Rwanda is about.
Well, very interesting question as a follow-up to that was, well, then, if flights are taking off on the 24th of July, why have you called a general election for the 4th? Wouldn't you want to see those planes in the sky?
Well, possibly. Anyway, look, we're going to bring in all the latest political promises because Labour and Plaid Cymru launched their manifestos later on today.
Well, let's get the thoughts of our political editor now, Christopher Hope. Very good morning to you, Christopher. And I believe you are at Euston. You're about to get a train up to Manchester, aren't you, to see the Labour launch their manifesto pledge. What were your main takeaways from last night? Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer, what did you make of their performances?
Yeah, morning, Stephen. Morning, Ellie. Well, the polls are pretty clear. YouGov poll says 64% think that Keir Starmer won, and just 36% thought Rishi Sunak won. I think almost the applause and the mocking laughter you heard there is an audience weary with what we've heard so much from these two leaders, the idea of the toolmaker father for Sir Keir Starmer. Will the Rwanda flights ever take off? And indeed, you correctly ask, if they're going to take off in July, why have an election before they take off? Many think they won't actually take off. Lots of clues, I think, in the exchanges about what's going to happen today in Manchester on tax. Now, we heard from Sir Keir Starmer, who launches the party manifesto in Manchester, that VAT, national insurance, income tax, they won't go up, nothing there. But what he didn't say is what else may happen. Maybe council tax, not in our manifesto, he said last night. Fuel duty increases, of course, that's been frozen by the Tory party going back to the early part of the last decade. That has to be decided budget by budget, Sir Keir Starmer said. So today, really, it's all about focusing on what will the favourites to win the election on July the 4th do. Will they make it harder, or will they try and squeeze the rich, get more money in wealth taxes maybe, which is certainly what some suggest. Maybe capital gains tax could be increased to 40% from around 20%, so it matches income tax, so wealth and income are taxed the same way. That would be a huge, huge issue for anyone with savings, homeowners, anyone who owns shares, maybe even pensioners. They also have money stashed away in shares. So the big issues coming up from the Labour Party. So today's the moment when they didn't want to surprise anybody or shock anybody. Just get past today, get their prospectus for government out and see where it takes us. We are basically exactly halfway through the campaign today. 21 days gone, 21 to go.
What I thought was disappointing last night, Chris, was, I mean, look, Rishi Sunak looked like a beaten man, to be perfectly honest. Keir Starmer had a bit more of a spring in his step, but everything was surrounded by caveats. You didn't actually get a clear answer to anything.
And that frustration was in your questioning to Pat McFadden a few moments ago, Stephen, wasn't it? That is clearly what annoys viewers and annoys people watching, but they want to try and keep their cards close to their chest. It's not an easy economic picture. The growth is flatlining. We saw that this week in figures just out this week. And looking forward, there'll need to be some cuts to government spending, some difficult choices to be made. They don't want to talk about that pre-election. So the big choices will be made probably in their September, October, or autumn statement or budget from the probable next Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. But yeah, you're right. We ask the questions and they're not answering them, but they don't have to. The Tory party has done its best to put all these policies out, hasn't budged the polls. With Labour, well, they're trying to make sure they can hold that 20 points per poll lead, that huge majority which is in prospect now, which even the Tory party are talking about.
Christopher Hope, just before we let you go, because I know you've got a train to catch, any surprises, do you think, in the Labour manifesto that we're going to hear a little bit later on this morning?
One word, Ellie, no.
Oh.
I doubt it.
OK, thank you, Christopher Hope, for that.
I think we're not expecting much in it at all. I don't want to be a downer. We're not expecting a lot of surprise. It's more. We will look through the detail on wealth taxes. How will they really raise money to try and fund their programme for government? Many think they can't do it, or the Tories think they can't do it, based on the plans set out so far. We'll read between the lines. I'll bring it first on GB News. But I think any big headline-grabbing announcement, I don't think so.
Christopher, thanks very much indeed. Let's get the view of the Deputy Editor for Spiked Online, Fraser Myers, who's here. Morning, Fraser.
Good morning.
I mean, I guess the thing with the Labour manifesto is going to be the costings.
Yes.
They say it's all fully costed, if you've not heard that a million times already in this campaign. But presumably from the manifesto, we'll be able to work out if they're telling the truth or not.
Well, let's see if any of those sort of tax rises that they've said they've got no plans for appear in there. I think, Keir Starmer and Labour have been trailing the idea that there's just going to be no surprises. They are running this election. They're almost doing what some people have called a Ming Vase strategy. You know, they've got this 20-point lead and they're desperate not to say anything that might upset anyone that could chip away at that. So it's going to be a very short manifesto, much shorter than in previous years. Apparently there's going to be 35 pictures of Keir Starmer, so that will take up even more of the page count. I don't know whether there'll be a pull quote saying his father was a toolmaker or not, but I'll be looking out for that. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's been clear that Labour's offer is, you know, extremely cautious. That has been their strategy. I mean, there's an adage in politics that oppositions don't win elections, governments lose them. And I think that is how Keir Starmer has been operating. And to be fair, you know, Rishi Sunak has blown himself up at every opportunity. He has walked into every landmine, many of them that he's planted there himself.
What did you make of Rishi Sunak's performance last night? Do you think that he looked defeated? I think questioning.
I think so. He was tetchy, as he often is when he's under pressure, but he lost that sort of spring in his step that he often has. You know, he's put on a very brave face for most of the campaign, including, you know, when he was being drenched. You know, when he first announced that election, he was still coming across as very chipper. But I think you can also see that in the messaging that the Tories are accepting defeat. They're now going around warning people not to give Labour a supermajority, which is a way of saying, look, we've already lost this election. Just, you know, give us a bit more power in opposition. And that came across definitely in Rishi Sunak's, you know, demeanour last night.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, I mean, this latest poll for GB News showing Reform, I mean, really, well, actually, not only nipping at the heels in terms of the party split if there was a vote tomorrow, but in terms of, it's an interesting question, but if you could choose anyone to run the country, who would it be? Well, Nigel Farage and the Reform Party coming in second.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I think probably not this election, but maybe in the future. You know, could Reform be, you know, the new force on the political right? I mean, it's entirely possible that the first past the post system, while it, you know, upholds the two parties, parties do sometimes swap places. You know, could the Conservatives be destroyed for a generation and longer, and Nigel Farage be the opposition to Labour? It's entirely possible. It's happened in other countries. In fact, you know, the Reform Party actually gets its name from the Reform Party of Canada, which is where in 1993 the Conservative Party there went down to 2 seats after being in government. That's Farage's aim anyway.
I should point out, because I hadn't noticed looking at the figures, that technically they're not seconds, they're third. Because technically Keir Starmer and the Labour Party on 22% are not first, they're second. 26% said none of the above. Now that actually is quite depressing.
I think this is going to be, you know, this is the none of the above election, and the story of, you know, the thing that is thrusting Keir Starmer into Downing Street, we assume, is not some wave of enthusiasm for the Labour leader. It's a broader collapse in trust for the governing party, for the people turning against the Tories. You know, I could imagine we could see a sort of record low turnout at this election. That's entirely possible. It could even be the case, I mean, looking at some of the polling numbers, you know, the vote share that Labour is on, Keir Starmer could get a lower vote share than Jeremy Corbyn did in 2017 and could still be returned into Downing Street and be given a massive majority. Those things are entirely possible because of the collapse of the Conservatives.
Fraser Myers, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Now, the campaign trail continued up and down the country yesterday. Let's take a look at some of the key moments of what the leaders got up to.
We would argue that you want to make, you don't want to have somebody receive a supermajority. And in this case, of course, the concern would be that if Keir Starmer were to go into number 10, it will either be Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer. There's no other outcome to this election. And that power was in some way unchecked. It would be very bad news for people in this country.
Well, what's important is that when I look at the performance of other small European countries, independent countries, I see them delivering a stronger economic performance and stronger public finances than the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom model is broken. It is absolutely broken.
All of our plans are fully costed, fully funded. There will be no increase in income tax, in national insurance or VAT.
Liberal Democrats have some really attractive, positive ideas to rebuild our economy and help people with the cost of living.
Voters in this country know that to mend broken Britain, we have to invest in our future.
Greens have the courage to say that we would change the tax system to make it fairer and make this investment possible.
Oh, there you go. Some serious politics, and Ed Davey had a swim.
Yeah, I think he hasn't actually been out of the water, has he, in this campaign trail?
Very...
He was on the teacups the other day.
It's very odd.
Talking to journalists about his manifesto. Very strange approach. But anyway.
Right.
Should we look at the weather?
I think we better have. Here's Aidan.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a chilly start out there this morning for many of us, but it is going to turn cloudier, breezier and, from the west, wetter. Now, we've got some early sunshine for eastern England, northern Scotland as well. Many places turn cloudier through the morning, and for Northern Ireland, western England, western Scotland and Wales, we'll see outbreaks of rain move in. By lunchtime, many places are damp and breezy with some heavy bursts of rain, particularly for Wales, the southwest and Northern Ireland. That's going to make it feel unpleasant, 14 or 15 Celsius. East of England, mostly dry, increasingly cloudy. Northern Scotland, though, keeps the sunshine until late in the day, because many places elsewhere are going to see the rain moving through. Now, across much of England and Wales at 5 p.m. it's damp with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be on and off, but it will be heaviest towards the west. Northern Ireland just seeing the rain starting to clear at this stage. But for the Central Belt, for much of the Highlands, Grampians, Western Isles as well, we'll see outbreaks of rain. Northern Scotland keeps the bright weather until after the sun goes down. And even into the evening, it's going to stay mostly dry here. Elsewhere, the rain clears to showers, and the showers become frequent across southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland overnight. It's going to be a breezy night as well, so with the breeze, a change in wind direction compared with the northerlies we've had recently, and the cloud, it's going to be a milder start to Friday, but it is going to be an unsettled start. The more persistent rain by this stage into the Northern Isles, the far north and west of the mainland of Scotland, and elsewhere, frequent showers developing as the day progresses. In between the downpours, there will be some brighter or sunnier spells. Not everywhere will get soaking, but for many places, I would keep an umbrella handy. There are going to be a lot of showers around.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it's time for the Great British Giveaway now, and your chance to make this summer really special with more than £16,000 worth of prizes to be won. It's 15 grand in cash, plus a whole load of treats, but you have to be in it to win it, of course. So here are the details you'll need.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash, £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer, plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true.
You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's Newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to breakfast. The time is 24 minutes past 7. Now, you wouldn't know it by looking out the window, but summer is apparently upon us. And it's set to be a busy one for airlines. But can passengers expect disruption this summer?
Well, the Civil Aviation Authority have released figures ranking airlines based on their punctuality.
Yes, according to the stats, Wizz Air, Turkish Airlines and TUI are among some of the worst offenders.
Well, travel correspondent at The Independent, Simon Calder, joins us now. Morning to you, Simon. What do you make of these results? I mean, it's interesting to see who comes out bottom, but who comes out top?
Well, absolutely top of the list is a small Irish airline called Emerald, who very few passengers fly with. If you do, you're unlikely to be delayed too much. They mostly shuttle between Great Britain and Belfast and Dublin, and they're fine. But actually, among the big airlines that we would be much more likely to take, Virgin Atlantic, absolutely clearly there as delaying people a lot less than its bigger rivals. Typical delay is about 14 minutes compared with British Airways on 22 minutes. And yeah, you've got the, I was going to say worst offenders. If you're going on a 8-hour flight, then the fact that you're half an hour late is probably not here or there, but that's what you're going to get on average at Wizz Air, at TUI, and indeed at Turkish Airlines. And actually, the Turkish Airlines one is a bit worrying because they've got so many connections. But once again, it's Wizz Air that seems to come bottom of this list. They say that they've had some operational challenges, that they're getting better, that they're throwing money at the problem. But altogether, it's just one of those things where clearly, as a passenger, you have to get used to the idea that you are likely to be held up. If I can look at the kind of low-cost airlines, that the other ones apart from Wizz Air, which is definitely going to be an outlier in terms of long delays, EasyJet, Ryanair, Jet2, pretty mid-table. EasyJet 21 minutes, Ryanair 20, Jet2 18. Actually, the Ryanair figure, I think, is going to be a concern to the airline because it's always been absolutely ferociously focused on punctuality. And the fact that it's performing worse than Jet2 will be of concern. But I guess they would say they're much more focused on southeast England, which, of course, has the most crowded skies in the world.
And Simon, what are the main reasons for these delays? Is it staff shortages? Is it something that can't be controlled? Things like weather?
Great question. OK, so if you go back to emerging from COVID, when suddenly, we can all travel and we all tried to, it all went very tango uniform, as they say in the travel industry, quite quickly. Staff shortage, lack of equipment, it was all very messy. Staff shortage is gone now. What I'm seeing as the main causes of delay are air traffic control problems. We've still got a squeeze on controllers in the key airspace of going southeast from the UK towards Italy, Croatia, Greece, Turkey. Of course, the fact that there's vast amounts of airspace, Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, completely off limits to Western airlines means that there's extra pressure. The weather's been a bit rubbish, but also there's the question of, well, how much slack do you build into the system? And of course, as many of us will know, if you're on the first wave of flights, leaving at about 7 o'clock in the morning, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be there on time. But the later it gets, in my experience, the more likely you are to be delayed because they build up during the day. And an airline could build in so-called fire breaks in the schedule, the odd hour here or there to allow for schedule recovery. But of course, all the time that your plane is sitting on the ground and your pilots and cabin crew are drinking coffee rather than flying the thing is money that you're losing.
OK. Simon, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. From glorious MK Central. Problem with the trains, apparently. It was meant to be in Birmingham. But there you go. Anyway, look, we asked for a comment from Wizz Air. This is what they had to say. In 2022, like all airlines in Europe, Wizz Air experienced extraordinary operating challenges driven mostly by the external environment. Wizz Air's performance today is amongst the strongest in the industry. On-time performance for flights departing to and from the UK increased by 16.6% to 71.7%, which is the highest amongst our direct competitors.
Well, we've also reached out to TUI, who have said we are sorry to any customers who have experienced delays to their TUI flights. Our aim is for all who travel with us to have on-time flights. However, in rare instances, extenuating circumstances mean this is not always the case. We pride ourselves on never cancelling flights, ensuring that no matter what the circumstance, our customers can rest assured we will take them to and from their holiday safely.
We've also asked Turkish Airlines for a comment. We haven't had one back yet, but we will let you know what they say when they respond to us.
Do stay with us. Still to come, Paul Coit is going to be here with all of the latest sport.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Aberdeenshire, the A90 is closed southbound from Lawrence Kirk to North Waterbridge after an accident. In West Yorkshire, the A647 remains closed each way along Leeds Road in Bradford after a fire. In Worcestershire, the A448 is closed each way between Redditch and Bromsgrove for an investigation. In Surrey, the A30 is partly blocked westbound by an accident at the Ashford Hospital Crossroads in Stanwell. Route 116 is having to divert. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues again this morning approaching the M25 because of roadworks, and there are a couple of problems in Hampshire. The A326 is closed each way between Netley Marsh and the A35 at Colbury after an accident, and the A27 is partly blocked eastbound by a breakdown between the Emsworth Junction at Havant and the Fishbourne roundabout at Chichester, causing delays. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's Newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have said storm. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time for the sport at 7:33. Paul Coyce is here. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, all right.
How's the old...
What?
Yeah, I'm struggling on.
OK.
Struggling on.
Should we talk about the Euros?
Yeah, we're talking about the Euros because it gets underway tomorrow. It gets on. You know it does.
Yeah,
gets
can't wait.
Tomorrow.
Scotland v Germany.
Scotland v Germany. First game is in Munich, so Scotland kick it off against the host, so that's very exciting. Scotland have been really good. They've been really good in the run-up to this. So hopefully they will be able to move out of their group. England are not playing until Sunday. John Stones, who is our central defender, he's a little under the weather at the moment.
Oh dear.
It's a little worry because they're keeping him away from the rest of the team at the moment until hopefully he's better for Sunday.
Yeah. So we don't know what it is.
We don't really know what it is. It sounds like a bit of a, I don't know, little dicky tummy, I think.
Yeah.
Be a little bit of trouble, so he's going to keep away from that. The European Athletics Championships, because we've got, of course, the Olympics is around the corner. By the way, I do have an update a little bit later.
Oh, yeah,
I do have an update of where the flame is.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
I know you do, but it's on the other side of the Atlantic in French territories at the moment. So
I found that a bit confusing because they did the whole tour of France and then shipped it off to the other side of the world.
I know, but the thing is, they're actually having the surfing over there as well.
Oh, I see.
But I tell you, I do something I really want to tell you about is that if we're going to go over to Munich actually, because the goalkeeper of Scotland, Angus Gunn, I mean, it's such a great story. Started off playing for England, by the way, when he was younger, although his dad won't want me to mention that too much. His father, also former Norwich and Scotland goalkeeper, and it's the legendary Brian Gunn. Morning, Brian.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. Look, it's great to see you. How is Munich this morning?
Munich's OK this morning. It was a bit rowdy last night. Thankfully, I've got my granddaughter with me, my daughter, my wife, and my son's girlfriend. So I'm being fairly sensible at the moment, but I've been invited to a Scottish night in Bavaria tonight.
Wow.
I think over 400, mad Scotsmen, probably drunken Scotsmen by the end of the night. We're being entertained by Travis, Bay City Rollers, and hopefully Rod Stewart. And it's all in aid of street football in Glasgow, and it's owned by the David Yarrow Foundation. So it's seemingly a sensible night before the big game.
Yeah, I hope you're going to be feeling all right for the next day, because there is a huge game on Friday, but it sounds brilliant. How proud are you of your boy? I mean, it's just a brilliant story, isn't it? Talk about following your father's footsteps.
Yeah, well, I was proud when he was English, but obviously, as a Scotsman myself, even prouder that he's made that big step across to international, football. As you mentioned earlier in the programme, he started off at England under-16s right through to the 21s, where he played every level, and then he was called into the full squad on one occasion against Brazil, but he hadn't featured in any of the competitive games, so that meant he was still eligible for Scotland.
Yeah.
And past Christmas, when Craig Gordon got injured, Steve Clark, my old Scottish teammate, who's the manager, decided to get in touch and asked me if I thought Angus would come and play for Scotland. I said, well, you don't need to ask me, you need to ask Angus. He's a grown man, he can make his own decision, and thankfully when he met Steve, I think he took about 2 seconds to decide, but he took 24 hours to go back to him with his answer.
Well, had you been saying, though, all the years, be honest with me, all the years then that he's been playing football, to say that, I think Scotland's going to be the answer for you, I think that's where you want to play?
Well, I did it right from birth. Angus Fraser James Gunn is his birth title.
Yes.
So I tried my best. I tried my best as a dad, and then obviously over the years, then many Scotland football shirts. Every year there was a Scotland football shirt in his Christmas pile, and then obviously his big hero back in the day was David Beckham.
Yeah.
So he went into the England setup like that. But we're delighted that as a family we're over here today and looking forward to the game on Friday night.
I'll bet. It's so exciting for you and over in Munich as well. And also to kick the Euros off. I'm thinking of last time that Scotland did, kick off a big championship. I think it was like in the World Cup in '98. I remember against Brazil where they came close. So, it's been a very good qualifying for Scotland. So what do you think the chances are? You probably want to play Germany straight away, don't you? Earlier the better.
Yeah, I think so. And it was a bit like the qualification when we played Spain in the second game. We caught them cold at Hampden on the night and beat them 2-0. So, I looked at the similarities between the two games and the build-up. Germany have played games. They've not. They've been in charge of the game, but they've not scored goals. So I'm hoping that they'll have a lot of possession, but at the same time, I think Scotland have got the players within the squad to defend and also to create chances during the game. So I'm coming here hopeful. We're in the hotel that Angus booked on the day of the draw.
Yeah.
It was the easiest thing to do because I was sitting watching the draw. He was on a bus to Bristol City away, and he was ready with his booking.com. There's other good hotel sites out there as well. But he was ready to get the hotel booked. And I said, Angus, you won't believe this. We're playing in Munich on the 14th of June and we're playing against Germany. So get it booked quickly. And we were straight in and we're in the hotel now.
Brilliant. And also, I'm even thinking about you playing against Bayern Munich in the Olympiastadion back in '93 with Norwich beating Bayern Munich. All the links are there. Brian, have a great night tonight. Give our best to Rod, won't you?
I will.
Say hi to Rod for us. Have a great night. I expect you in Lederhosen then in Munich tomorrow. And more importantly, give our best to Angus and the boys for tomorrow night.
Thank you all. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Brian.
You.
Great stuff. Brian.
What a lovely man.
Everyone's got your penchant for Lederhosen.
Well, the thing is, we had the other day when we had John McGinn, the Scotland captain, when they arrived, and then he was in the Lederhosen. Look, there we are. I can never watch this enough. There is John McGinn in the middle. That will be Brian Gunn, I imagine, with Rod Stewart tonight before the game against Germany. Look at that. Fantastic. I could never watch that.
Brilliant.
Good stuff.
By the way, that's me on the far left, isn't it? So, yeah, I didn't mention that. Yeah.
Nothing would surprise me.
It didn't recognise me, did it?
No, very good. All right, Paul, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Still to come, do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers with Lewis Oakley and Emma Wolfe. That's next.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Now, a 23-year-old plus-size model called Sarah Milliken has been crowned Miss Alabama in 2024. Marvellous. After a huge win in the national pageant, the beauty queen has been subject to mass online trolling where haters have branded her an unhealthy embarrassment. That's one of the nicer things people have been saying, by the way. Look, you can see pictures of her there. Is this idolising obese models? Is it empowering or is it dangerous, given the obesity crisis we are facing, not just in this country, but all over the world?
This young woman is very, very overweight. And I think anything that makes obesity acceptable because of its health issues, we ought to be regarding it in the same way as we regarded smoking. And we know the figures out last week about the incidences of cancer in young people from processed food, ultra-processed food. We know obesity is costing the NHS and therefore us absolute fortunes. And we know that it leads to all sorts of other problems. So I think we have to get the balance right. Yes, be body confident. Nobody needs to be a stick insect. But let's not celebrate unhealthiness.
You know, she's a lovely young lady. I mean, she's very confident in her body, which is a good thing. However, it's that fine line when we have children going to school who are already obese in this country. How do we draw that line between?
Look, there is no place for hate, I think, in the world of society. I know that's probably an obvious thing to say, but the amount of abuse that this young girl might have had as a child for being overweight and for being constantly overweight, I think if that is a way in which she has a platform to say, I am who I am, then I think that is fine. But you're right.
The People's Channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
$7:43. Lewis Oakley and Emma Wolfe here to take us through the papers. Morning, you two.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh, excuse me. Emma, can we start with the Times? We're sort of saying Sir Keir Starmer has refused to rule out tax rises.
Yeah.
He's refused to rule out all and any absolutely possible tax rises. But he said no tax rises for working people.
No tax rises for working people. He's not. He has committed to not raising NI. What are the other three? Income tax and VAT. But there are questions over capital gains tax, there are questions over fuel duty, there are lots and lots of questions. As you say, last night was pretty uninspiring from both of them.
Yeah.
The thing that Sunak's problem is not talking about why have you done nothing over the past 14 years. And Starmer has the opposite problem, I think, which is people are asking, where is the money coming from? Where is the money coming from? So they're launching their manifesto today in Manchester, as you know, from Christopher Hope on getting on his train to Manchester now. So they're launching their 125-page manifesto. And Starmer's line is going to be he's going to create wealth. So he's going to just magically create wealth. It's going to be brilliant. He can keep taxes down by growing the economy. He doesn't see this binary thing between cutting public spending and raising taxes. He says, no, we need to kickstart the economy. We want to... he's promising a lot. He's promising a total change in direction for Britain without much detail, without much commitment. This is the problem.
Though, because this is the thing. For so long, Labour have said, don't worry, we've got a plan, we've got a plan. Well, today, we finally find out what the plan is and if there's any logic in it. So, I mean, I'm not expecting any sort of surprises in their manifesto, but I think it will give us a lot to talk about, the detail. And, you know, it could potentially swing some voters here where they say, look, that's just not a plan. After all this time, this is not a good plan. Or they could say, actually, this might work. So I'm really interested to see what they're going to come out with today. We're finally getting the detail. It's here.
But will we? Will we get any detail? Because this line about creating growth and growing the economy, it's still quite nebulous, actually. And they always have that fallback, which is, well, we don't know the finances until we get into the Treasury. We don't know the actual state of the economy until we can get our hands on the, you know, on the actual detail. So that's kind of, I think that's the defence, always, of not giving too much detail.
Yeah, but it's sort of...
But I think people are getting frustrated by that.
Yeah, but it falls back as well. The Prime Minister has said repeatedly, well, we have a plan, Labour doesn't have a plan.
Yeah. Stick with the plan.
Remember?
It's gonna be okay.
And I said to the Prime Minister, he was on breakfast 3 weeks ago, but what is the plan that you keep talking about, the Conservative plan? And there's no... he said, well, it's very clear what our plan is. I'm not entirely sure it is.
No.
But as I say, what Labour's plan is, I don't know either. But it's going to be interesting to see. What I want to know is, can we look at this 125-page manifesto and be able to get the experts to sit down and cost it?
Exactly.
Because
And that'll be interesting. I mean, you can't just fill 125 pages with pictures of Keir Starmer and, you know, guff about growing the economy. You do actually need some detail in there. And I think people now are starting to make a decision about where they're going to go in 21 days, where they're going to put their cross, in which box, in 21 days' time. And I think they do. Lots of people, myself included, want some detail now, want to know, OK, what do you actually mean when you say all this great stuff about, you know, growing the economy?
You would hope that this manifesto is going to be watertight. Like, the first thing people are going to ask is, like you, is this costed? And, you know, that Labour have had to make this huge thing about the economy and being smart with money and having a strong economic plan. If that's not in there, they know they'll be ripped apart.
A very interesting approach from the Tories, Lewis. You look at the Daily Mail, this is the front page. They are warning about a supermajority for the Labour Party.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So we know for a while now that the Tories have said, look, a vote for reform is a vote for Labour. Then Farage just come out and says, look, Labour's going to win anyway. So, you know, you may as well vote with your heart of what you actually want. So now, stage 2 is don't give Labour a supermajority, which is, I mean, slightly defeatist in the fact that they're basically saying, well, the Labour are going to win, but don't let them win by that much because then you'll be in a socialist state. And I've got to say, you know, not only does it seem desperate in that sense, but also I can't imagine any disaffected Tory voters that are saying, look, I just can't do it this time, are going to read that and say, oh, well, I'll hold my nose and do it then because I don't want...
Really? I don't know. I don't know. I've heard people, I mean, just anecdotally, but I've had people say, well, maybe I'll vote Conservative because we don't want a... You know, you've got to be a decent opposition, yeah.
Yeah, but that's their choice, Stephen. I feel this is so disrespectful to voters when you start telling them what not to vote for, what they'll get. You know, a vote is a vote. If democracy means anything, it means that we can choose to vote. We have a broken system. We have first past the post, which means that millions of votes for reform will end up being pretty much zero, you know, in terms of 1 or 2 MPs, maybe. So I think the system itself is broken. But don't have the Prime Minister, after 14 years, telling us, oh, well, if you do this, you're going to get that. I just think, give us what you're offering. Tell us what you're offering. Convince us to vote Tory. Don't start saying, well, if you do this, you'll get Labour. I mean, that's the politics of defeatism.
Yeah. I mean, Stephen, interesting to hear what you said anecdotally about people saying that they could still vote for the Tories just to avoid it. Because, you know, I'm reminded of the person on the debate last night that was saying, you know, I'm a lifelong Tory voter and I just can't bring myself to do it this time. And from the people I'm talking to, that's really the attitude. It's like, I just can't do it again. So they're either planning to, you know, spoil the ballots, not vote, or vote reform. And I think that the idea that they would then maybe put that vote back in for the Tories if they don't really believe in it, I think it's definitely harder for people this time to do that.
And there's an argument as well. Sorry to interrupt. But there's an argument that a solid majority, and I'm not, you know, I'm not advertising for Starmer at all, but a solid majority would actually be better for the Labour Party, for the country, because then we have stability. A small majority might be more problematic at this stage.
Yeah, I suppose
many factions.
But it's a difference, I guess, between a sort of substantial majority and a super majority, which is obviously
I mean,
a
the
new
interesting
turn of
thing would
phrase.
be if Labour do need to be propped up and then have to negotiate some sort of PR and what that will have for future elections. That could be interesting.
What he means by a supermajority basically is the total collapse of the Conservatives, doesn't he? He's effectively saying, we will be in bits, we will be in pieces.
Yeah, but I guess, but then the alternative to that is to see what happens to reform.
Exactly.
And if reform, which is certainly a possibility, could be the second largest party.
Yeah. And that's what Sunak must be absolutely terrified of.
Yeah.
But if we are in the region of that sort of 57 seats that they were talking about, their social media was talking about getting as few as 57 seats, then really, they're in collapse.
Let's talk about nudity, please, in the Daily Star.
Nude footballers, OK.
Yeah, nude footballers. There's this big thing, the they're staying at a hotel where you have to be nude in the spa.
Yeah. So, well, lots of European hotels you have to be. I mean, they're staying. Sorry, this is the Euro team, the England team, flying out to Germany, and they're going to this very posh hotel. The FA bosses have paid $850,000 to take over the hotel.
Yeah. Wow.
But the naturist rule has been dropped. I guess it's a security thing. Maybe the footballers can't wander around the hotels in the all together. I don't know. But there is a rule. I mean, I've been in places in Europe where if you wear a towel around you in the sauna, for example, they waggle your finger. You know, that's not seen as hygienic. You don't wear clothes in the spa, in the saunas, and things like that.
I just sort of think for these lads, I mean, they all hang about in the showers and the tubs after the game.
But is it not a security thing?
Yeah.
What if you have some of the people working in the spa, someone takes a photo on a phone, and then they publish them? I think it's very much a kind of privacy and publicity thing.
It's, you know,
I never thought of that.
In their changing room when they're all together, I think it's probably fine. But when you're in a hotel somewhere, you know, just imagine getting that picture of what a famous footballer naked, and then, you know, being able to sell it or upload it. Yeah, they don't want that. So I can understand why they've changed the rules. But I will say, I think that Brits as a whole are getting a bit better with nudity and the idea of a nude spa and skinny dipping. I feel like I hear more and more about it in the papers.
Not in this country. I mean, when's the last time you saw a nude person walking around?
Well, not in Central. I remember being here, sat with you, Stephen, and Anne Diamond, and we were talking about it was like a Super Sunday of nudists. They were all going different. There was a
there was
Birmingham.
cycling.
It was Birmingham somewhere as well.
They were cycling.
I'm sorry.
Through London, didn't
That is appalling. And I'm a cyclist, but no, that's not right. You don't inflict those kind of images and
Images? It's a human body.
Bits on cycling seats in public. In a family's... No, there are young children in the street and you have people cycling on bikes. It's very, very wrong and very weird.
The argument against that would be that bodies aren't sexual.
Meat and 2 veg on someone's bike seat.
Yeah.
Well,
it's no good whispering it. You've said it now, Emma. You've said it now.
Do we have time to talk about hot dogs? Yes, we do.
Oh, no!
Talking of which.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
Perfect segue.
What a beautiful link.
Should we look at hot dogs?
Yes, so a hot dog eating champion has been banned from a famous contest after signing on to promote vegan sausages. So this is happening in New York. It's a big Coney Islands event they have on the 4th of July. And this year, one of their top eaters, who in 2021 set the world record by eating 76 hot dogs, has basically been told, well, if you promote vegan sausages, you're banned. I mean, I read this story and thought, well, does it matter what's in the sausages? It's still the same thing, really, isn't it?
I think the contest must be sponsored by a rival brand. Or
You have to mention his name.
Oh, the guy's name?
Joey Chestnut.
Joey Chestnut, there we go.
It's a brilliant name. That's a great name.
I'll tell you what, I just think in a world where people are starving, stuffing hot dogs down your throat seems a bit obscene to me.
Very unhealthy as well, because these vegan alternatives are full of ultra-processed food. So eat a proper hot dog or don't eat it at all.
Emma,
there you go. Right,
we're out of time, I'm afraid.
Here's the weather.
Here's the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a chilly start out there this morning for many of us, but it is going to turn cloudier, breezier and, from the west, wetter. Now, we've got some early sunshine for eastern England, northern Scotland as well. Many places turn cloudier through the morning, and for Northern Ireland, western England, western Scotland and Wales, we'll see outbreaks of rain move in. By lunchtime, many places are damp and breezy with some heavy bursts of rain, particularly for Wales, the southwest and Northern Ireland. That's going to make it feel unpleasant, 14 or 15 Celsius. East of England, mostly dry, increasingly cloudy. Northern Scotland, though, keeps the sunshine until late in the day, because many places elsewhere are going to see the rain moving through. Now, across much of England and Wales at 5 p.m. it's damp with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be on and off, but it will be heaviest towards the west. Northern Ireland, just seeing the rain starting to clear at this stage. But for the Central Belt, for much of the Highlands, Grampians, Western Isles as well, we'll see outbreaks of rain. Northern Scotland keeps the bright weather until after the sun goes down. And even into the evening, it's going to stay mostly dry here. Elsewhere, the rain clears to showers, and the showers become frequent across southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland overnight. It's going to be a breezy night as well, so with the breeze, a change in wind direction compared with the northerlies we've had recently, and the cloud, It's going to be a milder start to Friday, but it is going to be an unsettled start. The more persistent rain by this stage into the Northern Isles, the far north and west of the mainland of Scotland, and elsewhere, frequent showers developing as the day progresses. In between the downpours, there will be some brighter or sunnier spells. Not everywhere will get soaking, but for many places, I would keep an umbrella handy. There are going to be a lot of showers around.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Aberdeenshire, the A90 is closed southbound southwest of Lawrencekirk after an accident causing queues. In West Yorkshire, the A647 remains closed each way along Leeds Road in Bradford after a fire. On the M602 in Greater Manchester, there are 2 out of 3 lanes closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 1 and 2. The M60 Eccles interchange to Trafford Parker Eccles. There are delays of up to 40 minutes with some cancelled trains into and out of Birmingham New Street thanks to a trespasser. In Worcestershire, the A448 is closed each way between Redditch and Bromsgrove for an investigation. In Surrey, the A30 is partly blocked westbound by an accident at the Ashford Hospital crossroads at Stanwell. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues approaching the M25 again today because of roadworks. And in Hampshire, the A326 is closed each way between Netley Marsh and the A35 at Colbury after an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock on Thursday, the 13th of June. Today, the battle for number 10. Sir Keir Starmer wins a snap poll after a TV debate with the Prime Minister as he refuses to rule out some tax hikes. That's as Rishi Sunak is taken to task over D-Day.
The Prime Minister's parliamentary private secretary is under fire after it was reported he placed a £100 bet on a July election date just days before the official announcement.
Rory McIlroy U-turns on his separation from his wife just a month after filing for divorce.
Flash flooding, wildfires and scorching temperatures hit Europe as Britain experiences cold weather under the Arctic jet stream.
All petrol and diesel vehicles should be banned from our roads by 2035. Well, that's according to the Green Party. We'll be asking, do you think it's the right way forward?
And in the sport this morning, the Euros begin tomorrow. England defender John Stones has been kept away from the rest of the squad with a sickness bug. Keely Hodgkinson, she was feeling a bit under the weather as well yesterday, but she still ran and won the 800-metre gold in the European Athletics Championships last night. And would Australia resort to dirty tricks to get England knocked out of the T20 World Cup? Well, I think you know the answer to that. But the big question is, where is the Olympic flame? We'll find out.
The winds will change direction during the next couple of days. It's becoming less cold, but not necessarily less wet. I'll have the full forecast in just a moment.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Yeah, before we get going, have you seen all this AI stuff now on a lot of these new phones? But you may have seen the adverts for them, where they have translation. So you can have a conversation with someone in a completely different language, and you say something, and it immediately translates it to them, and you do it in all these different languages.
No, haven't seen that.
Haven't you?
No, but it sounds good.
It's really, really clever. It's really clever. Anyway, there's a new one out for your dogs. This is in The Sun this morning. So it's an AI translator, which means you can have a conversation with your dog, and it will translate it into barks and translate their barks into language.
Well, that sounds great.
I don't know that I would trust it. Can you imagine?
I'm not sure if there was a study out last week, you might have even done it on the show, saying that barking is just sound. It's not actually a language. It's not a doggy language.
But no, it's not. It can't be in the same way, no.
No, it's not the same thing. So how could you translate it?
I don't know.
It's not a language.
I don't know. Maybe it just
I like
says,
the sound of it.
I'm hungry, or whatever. I mean, it's that sort of thing, isn't it? I'm hungry, or
Maybe from the pitch you can work out what it means.
I need a wee.
But I think if you're a dog owner, you know anyway, don't you?
Yeah, but it's... I don't know. It'd be great if it worked. But, but you know, could it actually work? Maybe they are actually talking a language.
I think it's quite nice. And I think it would be nice if you can translate it the other way around. So, like Rex, you could say, love you, Rex, then Rex knows he's loved.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Sausages. Yeah.
He probably just wants to tell you he's hungry.
Yeah, probably. I don't know, it's an interesting idea. So if you've got hold of one of these devices, you can talk to your dog.
And if it works,
let us know.
Let us know. Yeah.
How would you ever know?
Don't know if I'd trust it. It's a nice idea, though.
Nice idea.
Have a chat with your dog.
Let's crack on with a bit of politics then, because Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer faced questions over their policies last night on a Sky News special as they did battle for the keys to Downing Street.
Yes, the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, was held to account over tax rises in the next Parliament.
No tax rises in the next Parliament.
No tax rises needed in the plans in our manifesto.
In the plans?
No tax rises for working people. That's income tax, national insurance,
so you're
and VAT.
not ruling out. I just decode that for you guys, because when a politician says no plans, it does mean I might.
Well, Beth,
I've done this a bit. It does.
Well, the Prime Minister was reminded of his promise to bring down the national debt.
Promise number 3, reducing national debt. It's gone up since you made the pledge, hasn't it? It has.
Yes, but it was always meant to come down over time, and that was always the time.
I know, but what was it when you made the pledge?
But we measure our debt according to an independent body measures our debt.
But it's higher now than it was when you made the pledge, right?
It's high. It was always forecast to be high. Let me be clear, Beth. I was never saying it would come down overnight.
Well,
very uncomfortable.
Well, Keir Starmer reminded everyone that his dad was a toolmaker.
Would you personally be happy to pay more tax?
Yes, of course.
OK.
I've always paid my tax in full. But, you know, and I accept I earn a lot of money in the job I am now in. But when I grew up, my dad was a toolmaker. He worked in a factory. It's true. My mum was a nurse, and actually we couldn't make ends meet, which actually isn't a laughing matter.
Actually, I find it very difficult when anyone says, yes, of course I'd be happy to pay more taxes. Who wants to pay more taxes? You don't have to pay the taxes that we have to pay. I'm not saying we should try and dodge the taxes. Would you volunteer to pay more taxes?
He can't say anything other than that, though, can he?
I don't know, but it's about honesty, isn't it? You could say, well, you know, I'm happy to pay whatever the tax rate is, but would I like to pay more taxes? No.
No.
I don't know. It's just that transparency thing. Do politicians think we're all fools? All just buy the line? I don't know.
I don't know. You could say that about a lot of the answers last night, though, couldn't you? You know, and he was asked, Keir Starmer, this is, about whether he was robotic or whether he was giving solicitors answers, insinuating that not giving very straightforward answers. He could just be really human and take it back to, you know, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I like doing this at the weekend. That would have been quite nice. I'm a football fan or whatever. But he just did resort to that very well-rehearsed line that he trots out all the time about it being a life of service.
Yes.
I don't know. I think that some people would like to see a more human side of our politicians.
I'm never quite convinced either, I have to say, about people saying it's a life of service I'm doing. It's all about profile and power and earning a good salary. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
You'd rather the honesty.
But it's just, would you do... I mean, do any politicians... Well, some backbenchers probably do, but does anyone leading the country ever say, yes, I'm doing this purely out of service? I thought maybe some people do, but that's probably quite unusual. Anyway, the Prime Minister was asked about the Rwanda plan and said it is ready to go.
What we've done is already started detaining people. Airfields on standby, planes are booked. The date for the first flight is out on the 24th, I think it is, of July. And the important point here is this is about establishing a deterrent. Because I believe that if people come here illegally, they shouldn't be able to stay. We need to have somewhere safe to remove them, and that's how we will stop the boats. And that's what Rwanda is about.
So why have the election now was the follow-up question to that, which is a valid point, actually. Why not wait till the flights have taken off? There was a Snap poll, it was a YouGov poll straight afterwards, which showed Keir Starmer had performed best in the debate and answered all of the questions. So it just depends how you view it, really. I certainly think the Prime Minister answered more questions more clearly than Keir Starmer did. The
audience were more receptive to Keir Starmer, I think. There was more heckling for Rishi Sunak. I think that was quite clear last night.
It will have been, I haven't seen the detail, but it will be a balanced audience. You sort of, for these sort of things, you do hire external companies to bring in a balanced audience. However, there's going to be more pressure on the Prime Minister because he's the one in the job, trying to retain the job. So, in a way, likely to get more heckling. Jeff said last night just proved to me that neither are fit to be in power.
David says Starmer was slimy and evasive last night. And John says, I'm looking forward to Labour's manifesto. Haven't read a fairy tale in a long while, says John.
Scarlett says, and I know a lot of you will tie into this because I know from what you think from your views this morning, it says Rishi and Keir too scared to take on Nigel Farage. Yeah, I mean, and we get this every time. I mean, there's another debate tonight that Nigel's going to be taking part in. It's another seven-header, if you like. But these debates, this one, and there was one on ITV last week, which were just these two gentlemen, and it's about who's going to be in number 10, because it is only going to be one of those two.
Yeah.
So that's why it's been done that way.
And just one last one from Rosie. He says, I'm struggling to find anything positive for either Conservative or Labour. Neither are a good option. In fact, they are both similar, telling us a pack of lies.
Well, we're going to have all the latest for you today because Labour and Plaid Cymru are both launching their manifestos later on today.
Well, let's speak to politics professor Matt Goodwin, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning, Matt. And we're talking about this new GB News poll. What are your main takeaways from it?
Well, in some ways, the poll is a pretty consistent story with what we've got nationally. In other polls, we've got a commanding 20-point lead for the Labour Party. That's more than what they need for a Labour majority. Crucially, though, look at the difference between the Conservatives and the Reform Party. Conservatives, 19%. The Reform Party, 17%. Nigel Farage and his party just 2 points behind. That's within the margin of error. Everybody in Westminster, as you know, Ellie, is talking about the possibility of an inflection or crossover point where Reform may draw level, if not replace the Conservatives. That's definitely something to watch. We've also got a significant number of voters who are saying openly, when asked who should run the country, Keir Starmer and the Labour Party comes top, followed by Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, then Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives. But listen, the top answer there, the most popular, and I think your discussion just picked up on this, was none of the above. None of the above is the winner, I think, of the 2024 general election. Everybody looking at Labour and the Conservatives saying, you know what, I'm just fed up with everybody in Westminster. So, yes, big Labour leads. Keir Starmer beating Rishi Sunak in those snap debate polls. But look, the real story out there is one of apathy, disillusionment with British politics.
Explain to us the difference, because I can't get my head around this, Matt. Why is it a different result when you say, you know, who would you vote for tomorrow compared to who would you like to see running the country?
Well, in some ways, they're picking up on similar sentiment. But obviously, when you're asking people about who would you like to lead the country, you're specifically mentioning the names of individual leaders. You're mentioning Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak, Nigel Farage, and you're asking people really a bit more of a specific question. Who do you actually want in number 10? And more often than not, they're broadly consistent. Here again, we have Labour number 1. The difference, of course, is when people are actively encouraged to think about the possibility of Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, they become more enthusiastic about that option. But look, Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives on every measure, got to be honest with you, Stephen, I mean, I'm getting worried for the Conservative Party in the sense that I've never seen numbers this low. I mean, this week across all polls, not just the GB People's poll, we got the Conservatives averaging 21% of the vote. I mean, this is remarkable. I mean, it's extinction level event. So as I keep saying, you know, we're either heading towards a massive Labour majority or we're heading towards the biggest mistake and blunder in the history of the polling industry, which if that happens, might as well pack up shop and go home.
I mean, and it's actually the first time we're hearing that from the Tories themselves, warning about a supermajority for Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, which is really interesting. Can I ask you about D-Day and Rishi Sunak leaving that ceremony early last week? It was started, that questioning last night on Sky News. Do you think this is something that he can shake? This was asked in the poll as well, wasn't it?
I actually think this is the event we're going to come back and remember from this general election campaign. This is the event that historians are going to write about when they talk about the 24 general election. Why do I say that? Because in the aftermath of D-Day, we've seen the Conservative vote share slide to new lows. Rishi Sunak's leadership ratings have crashed after D-Day to about -27, the lowest level on record, lower even than Liz Truss and Boris Johnson at the worst points of their premiership. But as you can see with our GB People's poll, a quarter of the country, 24%, are saying, actually, this made me think worse of Rishi Sunak. Now, when you consider that 40% already felt negatively about him, you know, that quarter is a big number. People have noticed this story. They don't like it. And, you know, as I said on X yesterday, the problem for D-Day is this. It's not just that he came home early. It's that it's raised a question in the minds of voters as to, does this guy actually believe in Britain? And it's a diffuse, sort of palpable sense out there in the country, if you like, that maybe the elites in charge of Britain aren't quite as connected with our history, our culture, defending the achievements of the past as they should be. And that is where he's come unstuck, because obviously you've then had Reform and Nigel Farage really pinning him on that issue. And of course, 2019 Conservatives, they really do not like Rishi Sunak leaving that anniversary early.
Do you think it's hit him in the sense that last night, it's got to be said, I mean, Keir Starmer really a bit evasive, not answering a question in a straight manner, but Rishi Sunak, well, he answered the questions, but he did look like a defeated man.
Listen, I've been told by Conservatives who are very connected into the party and into the government operation that there's a sense of resignation in the air, that people have been shocked as to how on earth that decision could have been made, especially given that you are competing with, you know, people like Nigel Farage, who you obviously press the patriotic button. By the way, I was actually in Clacton at the weekend, and D-Day kept coming up on the doorstep. Why? Because it's the oldest seat in the country with lots of veterans. So I think, you know, it's one of these issues that is going to run through everything. And it also, you know, if you go back to the really big leaders debates, what struck me most about that was the speed at which Penny Mordaunt threw Rishi Sunak under the bus, basically saying the Prime Minister had been wrong to come home early. So already you're seeing prominent Conservatives criticise him too, but also position themselves for that leadership election, which presumably is going to come after the general election on July 4th. I imagine this summer will be a very eventful summer politically within the Conservative Party. But yeah, this is one of the biggest blunders of Rishi Sunak's entire premiership.
Okay. Matt Goodwin, thank you very much indeed.
Matt mentioned Clacton, where he was visiting and talked about the impact of D-Day in Clacton. So I just want to tell you who the candidates for the Clacton constituency are. Matthew Bensilem for the Lib Dems, Nigel Farage for Reform, Craig Jameson for the Climate Party, Tony Mack, who's an independent, Natasha Osborne for the Green Party, Yovan Owusu-Nepal for the Labour Party, Andrew Pemberton for UKIP, Giles Francis for the Conservatives, and, oh, here we go, Tesos Papanastasiou for the Heritage Party, which I hope I got that right.
Yes. Now, the campaign trial continued up and down the country yesterday. Let's take a look at some of the key moments.
We would argue that you want to make, you don't want to have somebody receive a supermajority. And in this case, of course, the concern would be that if Keir Starmer were to go into number 10, it will either be Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer. There's no other outcome to this election. And that power was in some way unchecked. It would be very bad news for people in this country.
Well, what's important is that when I look at the performance of other small European countries, independent countries, I see them delivering a stronger economic performance and stronger public finances than the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom model is broken. It is absolutely broken.
All of our plans are fully costed, fully funded. There will be no increase in income tax, in national insurance or VAT.
Liberal Democrats have some really attractive, positive ideas to rebuild our economy and help people with the cost of living.
Voters in this country know that to mend broken Britain, we have to invest in our future. Greens have the courage to say that we would change the tax system to make it fairer and make this investment possible.
There we go, it's having another swim.
Yes, Ed Davey can't get himself out the water.
Not for the first time.
During the selection campaign, yes.
There you go. Right, let's get a check on the weather for you this morning. Here's Aidan.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a chilly start out there this morning for many of us, but it is going to turn cloudier, breezier and, from the west, wetter. Now, we've got some early sunshine for eastern England, northern Scotland as well. Many places turn cloudier through the morning, and for Northern Ireland, western England, western Scotland and Wales, we'll see outbreaks of rain move in. By lunchtime, many places are damp and breezy with some heavy bursts of rain, particularly for Wales, the southwest and Northern Ireland. That's going to make it feel unpleasant, 14 or 15 Celsius. East of England, mostly dry, increasingly cloudy. Northern Scotland, though, keeps the sunshine until late in the day, because many places elsewhere are going to see the rain moving through. Now, across much of England and Wales at 5 p.m. it's damp with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be on and off, but it will be heaviest towards the west. Northern Ireland just seeing the rain starting to clear at this stage. But for the Central Belt, for much of the Highlands, Grampians, Western Isles as well, we'll see outbreaks of rain. Northern Scotland keeps the bright weather until after the sun goes down. And even into the evening, it's going to stay mostly dry here. Elsewhere, the rain clears to showers, and the showers become frequent across southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland overnight. It's going to be a breezy night as well, so with the breeze, a change in wind direction compared with the northerlies we've had recently, and the cloud, it's going to be a milder start to Friday, but it's going to be an unsettled start. The more persistent rain by this stage into the Northern Isles, the far north and west of the mainland of Scotland, and elsewhere, frequent showers developing as the day progresses. In between the downpours, there will be some brighter or sunnier spells. Not everywhere will get soaking, but for many places I would keep an umbrella handy. There are going to be a lot of showers around.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it's time now for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance, yes, it's your chance to make this summer really special with over £16,000 worth of prizes to be won.
Yes, you could get 15 grand in cash, plus a whole load of treats, but you've got to be in it to win it. So here are the details.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Thank you. Yes, good luck indeed. Now, still to come, we'll be asking, should we ban petrol and diesel cars? The Green Party seem to think so. Is that the right course of action? We'll be talking about that next.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Angela, what's on the menu? Well, the menu today really is the battle between King Charles and Prince Andrew about his home, Royal Lodge. It's gone on for quite a long time now because increasingly the place looks very dilapidated. No paint, raw under the way that the whole thing's built, and King Charles gives him £3 million a year to have safety, and also another $1 million just to keep it going. And it costs about £400,000 a month to keep the place going. Really? So it is ridiculous that he's there. And I think it's like anybody, if you get to a certain age, his daughters don't stay there because they stay in London, you get to age when you downgrade. And it's not a big deal, it's not hopeless, it's actually gives you a fresh feeling. And I think it's very silly that he won't do it, but he's determined not to, and the King is determined to, and it seems that if he doesn't listen and make all these decorations properly, that he's going to stop giving him the money, which would be very difficult indeed for him. Because every 5 years, isn't he meant to paint the outside and all sorts of things? And the Queen didn't give him much money in her will. It all goes to the heir. So Charles has got the money. And so, you just wonder how he'll manage, because he's only got, what he can do.
How he'll manage? He can move somewhere cheaper like the rest of us. I mean, £400,000 a month.
Yeah.
You could go to Frogmore Cottage, which is the offer.
Yes, exactly. That's the offer. And it's all been very decorated. Apparently, Meghan did it very nicely. It's much smaller, but it's also very carefully guarded. So he should be able to do that.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now, more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Join me, Nana Queer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true.
You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. The time is 8:25. Now, the Green Party has called for all petrol and diesel vehicles to be banned from driving on the roads by 2035.
It is a radical pledge. It calls for the UK to shift the transport system away from cars and roads, but also push for the return of electric vehicle grants.
Well, today we're asking, should we ban petrol and diesel cars from our roads? Well, joining us now is co-founder of the Together Association, Alan Miller, and director of the Climate Media Coalition, Donica McCarthy. Very good morning to you both. Good to see you. Donica, let's start with you. Is this the right idea from the Green Party?
Yeah, to ban petrol cars from 2035 is a serious policy in response to the seriousness of the climate crisis. We've seen temperatures soar globally this year. Ocean temperatures are terrifyingly above average. And so therefore to see a political party put their head above the parapet and say, we need to act is good. But there are positives as well for the public. Electric cars are cheaper to run. They are cleaner to run. We've got 40,000 people dying prematurely from pollution in this country. And also what they mean is that we need to wean Britain off, drivers off, being dependent on global oil billionaires. Putting us away from the oil economy is good for drivers and good for the public and good for clean air, and actually means that we have better quality of air for our kids and pensioners.
Alan?
Well, let's start with the first thing. The idea that we're going to just ban all these cars by 2035 is it shows it's an ongoing attempt to ban, stifle and limit. It's very interesting, the idea of electric cars. I don't know how people think they're made, but the idea that you don't use furnaces and you don't use carbon to create an electric car is preposterous. It shows the depth of the fact that people don't talk about accurately things. But where does the cobalt come from? What about the copper? What about the mines with the children? What about the cost? What about the weight? What about the problems for the roads and also for car parks and being set on fire? We've seen all these things with electric, but much more of a concern is this attempt to smear incorrectly using all these notions. Our air is better than it's ever been before in Britain. The direct line of assault that tries to link the cars with people's health, as the mayor did, has been shown to be actually a lie with interference in science. What we want to see in Britain is innovation. We want to see better transport connections across the country. We want to see a transformation. This engineering nation that led the world is now reduced to saying we're going to get rid of cars, we're going to fine, survey and impose on people. We're going to limit, we're going to shut off roads, we're going to have low traffic neighbourhoods, we're going to stop people moving around, we're going to keep them basically in small areas where they can walk and cycle. And this is all part of that agenda. And I'm very concerned as well with the paper mile that's being levied and the whole idea of having digital ID and tracking people, that very soon we're going to see a similar system being introduced by some people like we see in Asia with a social credit system, where if you go somewhere or if you want to fly somewhere, you use carbon. And it's very, very worrying.
All right. Donica?
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty potpourri of issues. Listen, making our family streets safer for kids, it makes sense. 15,000 kids a year are injured by drivers. What is wrong with making family streets safer for them? Alan's against 20-mile-per-hour zones. Look what happened in Wales. Insurance claims are down 20%. And actually, it means that kids are 7 times safer. So actually, I don't understand, Alan's. We want freedom. Yes, we both agree with that. I want freedom from pollution. I want freedom from climate destruction. I want kids to be free from fear on our community streets. What's wrong with that? Let's have a win-win for freedom, Alan.
Well, 20 miles an hour in Wales was demonstrated to delay lots of emergency vehicles and first responders, which resulted directly in all sorts of problems that have been reported widely. Listen, we should have a grown-up debate. 20 miles an hour, don't interrupt please, 20 miles an hour around schools or some areas where people might decide to do that, that's something we can come up with. Blanket rules that get imposed that have not been discussed with the public, have not had scrutiny and a cost-benefit analysis where we all, as a populace, as a demos, get a chance to weigh these things up. The consultations that allegedly come often are not done properly, often ignore people. Let's have a proper debate. Now, the Greens are saying this is what we want to do. Can you vote for us on this basis? The Greens have got all sorts of other issues as well at the moment, but they are saying that. So that's good that they're putting that out there. Unfortunately, we've got a situation where quite a lot of the parties have been taken up. You mentioned billionaires. There's a few billionaires, green billionaires, that are underwriting all of these ideas, publishing in the academy, the whole idea. We've done a report on it. It's called Dirty Money, Clean Air, Dirty Money, about politics with Ben Pyle. It's widely been distributed. It's been widely. My point being,
let Donica respond to that. Go on, Donica.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, this is an area where Alan and I will, to his surprise, will agree. We do need transparency in funding in the United Kingdom. Most of the policy agenda in the UK behind fossil fuels has been driven by think tanks that we don't know who funds them. I agree with Alan. All think tanks and all political party funding should be transparent. There should be a law saying we cannot have think tanks in the UK operating that we don't know who funds them. The Global Warming Policy Foundation, for example, is a senior think tank funded by American oil billionaires, and we need transparency in that. I agree with Alan on that.
Oh, well, on that moment of agreement, Donica, Alan, thank you both very much indeed.
And let us know what you think. gbnews.com/yoursay. Do stay with us. Paul Coit is going to be here shortly with all of your sport. That's next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Aberdeenshire, the A90 is closed southbound towards the Crosspoles junction to the southwest of Lawrencekirk after an accident causing queues towards Dundee. In West Yorkshire, the A647 remains closed each way along Leeds Road in Bradford after a fire. On the M602 in Greater Manchester, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 1 and 2 from the Eccles interchange to Trafford Park, causing delays. In Worcestershire, the A448 is closed eastbound from the A38 at Bromsgrove to Redditch for an investigation. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, there's a lane closed northbound south of junction 13 at Stroud, where a vehicle caught fire with delays towards there. In London, the A30 is closed westbound from the Clockhouse roundabout to the Ashford Hospital crossroads after an accident causing queues. And on the M20 in Kent, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 2 and 1 towards the M25, causing delays. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's Newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting.
I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The People's
Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's time for the sport, isn't it?
Oh, yes,
Paul
it
Coit's
is.
Here with us.
He's
Morning,
poised.
Paul.
I've decided
on the starting blocks.
I'm not going to do it. I can't do it.
You better add.
There's loads going on. We've got the Euros, obviously, which gets underway tomorrow, so we'll talk about that tomorrow more.
Yeah.
We had Brian Gunn, didn't we? Angus Gunn's dad.
Lovely man.
Scotland goalkeeper who was lovely. It's good to have him on. European Athletics Championships came to an end yesterday because the Olympics coming up at the end of July. Keely Hodgkinson, she's very good.
She's very... Gosh, only, what is she, 22 or something?
22 years old. 800-metre runner. She's so good, although yesterday she was a little under the weather and didn't actually think she was going to be able to run, but still did and still beat everybody easily. She was such a hot favourite, 33-1 on, which basically means that if you put 33 quid on her, then you win one back. Not that I imagine that's how it works.
What
So if you have it
money
on,
that'd be?
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine? So it's pointless. So I can't imagine there's many bookies around the athletics tracks, though. You know, the other thing's disappointed me with Rome, where they've had the European athletics.
What's that?
Lack of crowds. Nobody's mentioned this, and I've watched a lot of it, and you just see all these empty seats. Whenever we have athletics here, in this country, it's always full. In Britain, we always get behind sporting events, but they insist on having world championships, like they had it in Doha, there was anybody there, and then even in Rome, I was really surprised. So there's just all these empty seats. I just think it's such a shame.
Yeah, it is. That is a shame.
Yeah, it's a real waste.
I mean, I would have thought the Italians would have been up for that.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I don't know whether they're saving themselves for the Olympics in France, but I don't know.
Maybe.
But the other gold medal was the women's 4x100 metre relay, and they were excellent in that. The men, they had a disaster with the baton the day before. They couldn't pass it over, and so anyway, the women came through. So it's been a pretty good European Championship. So looking good for going forward to the Olympics.
Good.
Can we ask you our favourite question that we ask you about this time?
On earth could your favourite question be?
Paul, where is the Olympic torch today?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because we'll find out. I will tell you where it is. It's in... You know what? How are they getting it from South America now to Reunion Island, which is just... It's 175 miles southwest of Mauritius, is where Reunion is. And there it is, and there we are. There's the flame. I don't know whether they just flew the flame back over.
You can't fly a flame, can you?
Yes, you can. You put it in a little thing, don't they? A little
miner's lantern thing. But even so, is it safe?
You wouldn't think that would be allowed on a plane, would you?
I wouldn't have thought so. But when it's the Olympic flame, they can do whatever they like.
Yeah.
Now that gentleman, his name is Daniel Narcissi. Always talking about himself, always... Sorry, but there we go. Daniel Narcissi, he's a handball player, so I've been looking forward to making that one. So there we are.
You went practicing outside.
Lighting the rings. So I don't know what happens now, because I'm getting a little... I try and follow the flame, but I'm a little confused about where they're now going to go, because how it gets from South America then over to the Indian Ocean in such a quick space of time.
Yeah, definitely on an airplane, Paul.
Or do you think they might have two?
No.
You don't reckon they've got a couple of flames?
That'd break the spirit of it all.
It would, and I would hate to break the spirit of it. You've got time for a little cricket, or you want to go to the dogs?
No, let's do cricket.
OK. Now, England are in the T20 World Cup at the moment.
Yeah.
But Australia, there's a chance that they could actually get England knocked out by manipulating the result of their next game against Scotland. Now, this is how it would work. Australia have now got to play Scotland. England could get knocked out by manipulating the outcome. They need to beat Oman and Namibia, England, which shouldn't be a problem, you would think, to go level with Scotland on points in Group B. Now, stop me at any point if this doesn't make sense. With Australia... I lost you when I said cricket, right? So Australia would have to lose to Scotland to eliminate England. So it may be in Australia's best interests to lose to Scotland, because they're already through to the group which is called the Super 8. Very good.
Very good.
Now, this is where it starts getting complicated. If after the Namibia game, England's run rate is less than Scotland's, Australia may not want to beat Scotland by too much. Now, Australian bowler Josh Hazlewood has said if we can get England out of the tournament, then it's in our best interest, as well as everyone else. We could knock it around and drag it out. In other words...
That's not cricket.
You know what? That's the point. It's not cricket. And the Cricket Council rulebook, which I looked up earlier, clause 2.11 Code of Conduct, says inappropriate manipulation of a net run rate for strategic or tactical reasons is not allowed.
Right.
So, any Australians, you try as hard as you can.
Don't do it.
Did that make any sense?
Yes,
whatsoever?
it did.
Can we have a very quick look at the dogs, because we are out of time?
LA Dodgers. By the way, you enjoyed going to the baseball?
Yeah, it was great.
Was it great fun? So
it was fantastic. Very American.
It was. It really was. Did you have the hot dog?
No, I didn't have
the hot dog. OK, but anyway, talking to dogs, these are dogs at... Look at these. Isn't this fab? LA Dodgers, they have like a dog day. I think what they call it, a puppy something or other. There we are. But anyway, bring your dog to baseball day, and there they all are. And I just love the idea. I don't know whether you have
It's just brilliant.
Do you pay for the dog?
No, the dog will be free, but I bet you've got to hose down the stand afterwards.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet you have. Yeah. So you just sit the dog on there and everybody brings the dog. I think I'm going to try.
It's brilliant.
I'm going to try and sort that for Spurs next year. Can you imagine that?
Oh, it'd be fantastic. Paul, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. See you tomorrow. Do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers with Lewis Oakley and Emma Wolfe. That's next.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Helen Worth, who of course plays Gail Platt in Coronation Street, is going to leave the soap after an epic 50 years. I'm joined now by another Corrie legend, Charlie Lawson, whose character, of course, Jim McDonald, lived across the cobbles from Gail Platt for many years. Welcome to the show, Charlie. I can see you looking at those images there, and it has to be said, fantastic acting. In 50 years, many of us just grew up with these characters and basically think they're part of our family. Can you shed light on some of your happy memories of the talent of Helen Worth?
We saw each other every day. She was a consummate professional and still is. This initially surprised me, but then I thought about it, and I'm frankly not surprised. Having spoken to certain senior members of the cast over the last period of time, you know, when Helen joined, or even when I joined, there was a cast of 25. I would put another 75 on that now, perhaps. It's a different animal now, totally, you know, 4, 5, 6 episodes a week. When Helen started, it would have been 2. She lives in London. She's not getting any younger. And she's done 50 years, for God's sake. Nobody can ask any more of that. And listen, Helen, look at that wee smile. God bless you, darling. I hope you have a great retirement. The trouble with actors is that we very, very rarely hang our boots up unless the bank balance is full, which it very seldom is. But also, we live for attention. And when you're in the most famous program on the planet, that attention 9 times out of 10 is an extremely good experience.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. The time is 8:44. We're going through the papers now with writer and podcaster Lewis Oakley and writer and journalist Emma Wolfe. Morning to you both.
Morning.
And Emma, let's start with you, shall we? And this is in the Times today. 1 in every £44 that Britain produces will be spent on sickness benefits by the end of the decade.
Yeah, I think this really highlights, whichever government gets in, the scale of the sort of challenge and the trouble, really, the problems that they're facing, and the really tough economic decisions that are going to need to be made somehow. This report shows that 1 in every £44 that Britain produces and makes will be spent on incapacity benefits, sickness, disability benefits, keeping people going, the people that need help with daily life. More will be spent on that than on pensions. The fastest rise in sort of disability and sickness benefits for absolute decades.
Don't understand it. I tell you what,
post-pandemic, it's got a lot worse.
Right.
But all of those people that are out of work, that are on incapacity, that are on disability benefits, it's going to be even greater than pensions.
You see, I just thought we need to just be tougher, don't we? And I don't necessarily mean people with disabilities. I think you've got to make sure that it's getting the people who really need our help, who cannot work. Need to be getting the help, proper help.
I think you're right, and disability is such a broad term. Is it mental health? Is it mental health issues? Is it work? Could you work in some other way? I mean, if you're a builder and you've injured your back, is there something you could do working from home? Like, it needs to be a lot more creative, because you can't just have people signed off work for life.
No.
You can't just have, of course, completely agree with you. If you're genuinely incapacitated, if you genuinely need, if you have a genuine physical disability, which means you cannot work, of course.
I think there's a lot of issues that come together, though, with this, isn't it? Because, you know, with the NHS in such a state, you know, sort of if you can treat people quickly, they can get back up and off they go. But if they've had to spend a few years off, that can be harder. Or their condition might have gotten worse and now they can't work. So that is an issue in itself. As you rightly say, the pandemic changed everything. A lot of people still not recovering from that. And I know that there is this feeling that some people are just chancing it and using the system. And what I would say to that is, yeah, I'm sure there is a percentage that are, but make work pay as well. That is also another thing. If you want to incentivise people back into work, you need to have a position where if someone goes to work, whether they're swiping in the supermarkets at the tills or whatever it is, that they can afford to put a roof over their head. Otherwise, people are going to look for other means.
Or you act nasty and cut benefits, and you really, you know, I mean, how do you make work pay? How do you force people to put up wages? It's a really tricky one. And there is that whole area of mental health where, you know, we've seen a huge rise in anxiety and depression and those kind of issues, which are genuine, but they are also chicken and egg. If you're not working, if you're sat at home, if you're not productive and doing something with your life, you do feel depressed, you do get anxious, you do feel that you've fallen out of the workplace. So it's a really, really difficult one. It needs a kind of holistic approach. We've seemed to have drifted into this since 2020.
It's not sustainable.
And the bill is absolutely vast.
Yeah, it's not right. Lewis, let's have a look at the Metro, should we? The man behind Jonathan Pye says he's going to miss the Tories. I have to say, I think Jonathan Pye is a satirical comedy character.
Yeah.
I don't find him remotely amusing.
Well, that's comedy. It's subjective. So this is Tom Walker, and he has risen to fame ranting about the mess we're in with politics. He's basically saying, you know, the Tories are probably going to be out, and what am I going to talk about? Because a centrist government is hard to satire, and it's going to be boring. So he's hoping to basically get as much material as he can out of the next 3 weeks before they're gone. And, you know, you've got to think of this. You know, it has been a carry-on. You look at the last 5 years from, you know, 3 prime ministers, debates about birthday cake and backstabbing, and you just think, we're supposed to be a serious country. Why on earth are you opened up to comedians coming in and making such, you know, funny clips about what's going on that people are resonating with? But all is not lost, because Tom Walker is now looking at the Americans with the potential of Donald Trump coming in as his next source of
There'll be plenty to satirise, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, you know, Labour governments aren't, you know, they're to be laughed at as well.
Well, I think it was levelled at Keir Starmer last night, wasn't it? He's boring.
Yeah.
I think there's a few characters in the cabinet, or sorry, the shadow cabinet, who he'll have fun with.
Emma, should we look at Rory McIlroy?
Yeah. Oh, I hate being nasty about people's private lives, but there are some stories where you just think, oh dear, this is not going to end well. And I'm afraid that was my reaction to the Rory McIlroy is giving it a second go with the marriage story.
Yeah.
His statement is, so he announced his divorce a few weeks ago from his wife. His statement is quite terse. He says, "We have resolved our differences and look forward to a new beginning." And I think, I mean, he has form. He's not, you know, I remember him calling off his marriage to, was it Wozniacki? She had sent out the marriage invitations and he called off their marriage. He called off the marriage publicly, so that wasn't great. But anyway, he was about to get divorced from his wife, but apparently they're going to give it a second go. Now, if you want to lay bets on things, you shouldn't be laying bets on the election. This is something to lay bets on.
Oh, no, let me be the hopeless romantic on the panel. You know, I think sometimes relationships are hard, and sometimes you do need to get to that breaking point to make you realise what you're about to lose, and to say, let's give it another go. I was speaking to a friend recently, and she said, my dad opened up the other day and said, I left the house 3 times over this 30-year marriage with the mom, and I wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
And, you know, so sometimes things get to those hard points. You can row it back.
I really hope you're right. I genuinely hope you're right.
Yeah.
It just feels there's so much money at stake. There's millions and millions of pounds in terms of a divorce settlement. He's about to, I think it's, just the beginning of the US Open.
Yeah, the timing is a bit of a coincidence.
The media statement is very, very kind of, as I say, quite terse. He's been advised by media advisors to give it another go. Something, to me, feels like this is delaying the inevitable. But no, I really hope you're right, Lewis, because, you know, yes, of course. How do you resolve all of that, though, Justin?
A month ago, they were getting divorced, and now we've resolved our differences.
I know.
Sorry, in 4 weeks, and you get...
It does slightly raise one's eyebrows.
And it's also public as well, isn't it?
It's very public, exactly, yeah.
Well, I'll be the hopeless romantic then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, me. Lewis, can we have a look at Armando Iannucci?
Yes, so this is the political satirist behind...
Now, he is funny.
The thick of it, yes. And so basically, he is set to be honoured in the King's birthday honours list. It'll be an upgrade for him, actually, because he's already got an OBE, so he's going to CBE now. So he's working his way up to a knighthood, maybe. I think this is quite an interesting story. Is this a bit of a wink from the King of, like, my God, you were on the money, weren't you? So, yeah, I mean, he's set to be honoured. Some other names in there as well. Gordon Brown is going to be honoured for his charity work since leaving Downing Street.
Companion of Honour. Is that a knighthood? What's Companion of Honour?
CBE, just a CBE.
Is that CBE?
Yeah.
I did find on here as well, there's the person that's responsible for getting rid of the phone line on HMRC is being honoured. And there's someone that tried to get in touch with HMRC the other day and couldn't, and waited on the phone for 40 minutes until they just cut the call. I don't think they deserve one.
I just think the honours system is completely broken. I like Nigella Lawson, and I didn't even know this, which I think shows how cool she is. She turned down... Did you know she declined an OBE in 2001?
Did she?
She said, I love what I do, I don't save lives, I'm cooking and I love what I do. There's no reason in the world why I should be honoured for it. I think that is cool.
Yes.
I think that is cool, and didn't trumpet it. Didn't say, lots of people turn down their honour publicly. I think that is cool. I do not understand why people are being honoured for sporting success, for cooking, for doing things they absolutely love and are paid huge amounts of money for. I think honours should actually be reserved for charitable work and philanthropic work.
Yes.
Not for politics. Not for politicians.
Yeah.
All of them, going out of the house. No, absolutely not.
I agree.
Just for good work.
Absolutely on that. Yeah.
And for local, the local people that have run a small charity or have set up an old people's home. Those kind of people, they should get honours.
Yeah. And your lollipop ladies.
Yeah.
Lollipop men.
Not your 21-year-old tennis star who's making millions and happens to be #1. Absolutely not.
I think a lot of people agree with you, Emma. Lewis, we've got about 20 seconds. You want to tell us about dogs and AI?
Yes, well, dogs, you can soon understand because an AI translator is basically already translating their barks to tell you what they're saying. I think the funny thing about this is if you speak to a dog owner, they already know what their dogs are saying, so is this really going to be used? But I will say, can it translate back? That'll be interesting when you can sort of say to your dog, sit down, go to bed. That'll be the game changer in this.
Yes.
Not into dogs, not into AI.
Killjoy.
I love AI.
Killjoy. Right, thank you both very much indeed. It'd be good to see you this morning.
Let's have a look at the weather, shall we? With Aidan.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a chilly start out there this morning for many of us, but it is going to turn cloudier, breezier and, from the west, wetter. Now, we've got some early sunshine for eastern England, northern Scotland as well. Many places turn cloudier through the morning, and for Northern Ireland, western England, western Scotland and Wales, we'll see outbreaks of rain move in. By lunchtime, many places are damp and breezy with some heavy bursts of rain, particularly for Wales, the southwest and Northern Ireland. That's going to make it feel unpleasant, 14 or 15 Celsius. East of England, mostly dry, increasingly cloudy. Northern Scotland, though, keeps the sunshine until late in the day, because many places elsewhere are going to see the rain moving through. Now, across much of England and Wales at 5 p.m. it's damp with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be on and off, but it will be heaviest towards the west. Northern Ireland just seeing the rain starting to clear at this stage. But for the Central Belt, for much of the Highlands, Grampians, Western Isles as well, we'll see outbreaks of rain. Northern Scotland keeps the bright weather until after the sun goes down, and even into the evening it's going to stay mostly dry here. Elsewhere, the rain clears to showers, and the showers become frequent across southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland overnight. It's going to be a breezy night as well, so with the breeze, a change in wind direction compared with the northerlies we've had recently, and the cloud, it's going to be a milder start to Friday, but it's going to be an unsettled start. The more persistent rain by this stage into the Northern Isles, the far north and west of the mainland of Scotland, and elsewhere, frequent showers developing as the day progresses. In between the downpours, there will be some brighter or sunnier spells. Not everywhere will get soaking, but for many places, I would keep an umbrella handy. There are going to be a lot of showers around.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Aberdeenshire, the A90 is closed southbound towards the Crosspoles Junction, southwest of Lawrence Kirk after an accident causing queues towards Dundee. In West Yorkshire, the A647 remains closed each way along Leeds Road in Bradford after a fire. In Norfolk, the A146 is blocked westbound by an accident at Loddon causing delays. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, there are delays in both directions towards Junction 13 at Stroud after a vehicle caught fire. In London, the A30 is closed westbound from the Clockhouse roundabout to the Ashford Hospital crossroads after an accident causing queues. On the M20 in Kent, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 2 and 1 from Brands Hatch to the M25, causing queues for around 3 miles. And in Hampshire, the A326 is closed each way between Netley Marsh and the A35 at Colbury after an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're making this summer funner, with 3 incredible prizes to be won. First, a fantastic £15,000 in tax-free cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, there's the latest iPhone 15 with a brand new set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. The summer fun could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel. Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock on Thursday, the 13th of June. Today, the battle for number 10. Sir Keir Starmer wins a snap poll after a televised election programme with the PM as he refuses to rule out tax hikes. That's as Rishi Sunak is taken to task over D-Day.
The Prime Minister's Parliamentary Private Secretary is under fire after it was reported he placed a £100 bet on a July election date just days before the official announcement.
Rory McIlroy U-turns on his separation from his wife just 1 month after filing for divorce.
Flash flooding, wildfires and scorching temperatures hit Europe as Britain experiences cold weather under the Arctic jet stream.
And all petrol and diesel vehicles should be banned from driving on the roads by 2035. That's according to the Green Party.
The winds will change direction during the next couple of days. It's becoming less cold, but not necessarily less wet. I'll have the full forecast in just a moment.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
I've lost the plot. It's working with you again, Del, because it's been 2 weeks.
I know, I
since
missed
I've seen you in the
Did
flesh.
you miss me?
I've missed you a lot.
You could see me down the screen.
I could. It's not the same.
I couldn't see you. I could just hear your voice.
But actually, you were brilliant on D-Day. That was really, really fantastic coverage.
Oh, thank you. Well, it helped to have you down.
But I know it was hard to do. I could tell it was really emotional for you. You must have been able to sense the emotion in the air.
Yeah, it was, and it was just incredible to meet those veterans. And we're so lucky that some of them are still with us. 21, I think, came over officially from Great Britain to Normandy, and it was just incredible to talk to them.
I said to you before in the break, didn't I? Did they want a kiss?
They were a bit cheeky, yeah.
You see, I love that about them.
They were a bit cheeky.
They'll all be like in the late 90s.
Oh, yeah, but they're still got game.
Cheeky.
Yeah, still a bit cheeky.
Good on them, that's what I say, fellas.
Yep.
Good on you.
We had a giggle.
I hope you obliged.
No, but we had a nice chat.
These fellas are just phenomenal.
Yeah, they are.
Heroes, each and every one of them.
Yeah, it was incredible to meet them.
Yeah, I bet. Right, let's crack on, should we? Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer faced questions over their policies last night. There was a Sky News special programme on the battle for Downing Street.
Well, the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, was held to account over tax rises in the next Parliament.
No tax rises in the next Parliament.
No tax rises needed in the plans in our manifesto.
In the plans?
No tax rises for working people. That's income tax, national insurance,
so you're
and VAT.
not ruling out. I just decode that for you guys, because when a politician says no plans, it does mean I might.
Well, Beth,
I've done this a bit. It does.
I did think that was a little bit patronising.
Did you? She got a round of applause for that, though.
Well, yeah. Well, I know Beth. She's very nice, but people know. People know. Anyway, the Prime Minister was reminded of his promise to bring down the national debt.
Promise number 3, reducing national debt. It's gone up since you made the pledge, hasn't it? It has.
Yes, but it was always meant to come down over time, and that was always the time.
I know, but what was it when you made the pledge?
But we measure our debt according to an independent body measures our debt.
It's higher now than it was when you made the pledge, right? It's high.
It was always forecast to be high. Let me be clear, Beth. I was never saying it would come down overnight.
Well, meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer reminded everyone that his dad was a toolmaker.
Would you personally be happy to pay more tax?
Yes, of course.
OK.
I've always paid my tax in full. But, and I accept I earn a lot of money in the job I am now in. But when I grew up, my dad was a toolmaker. He worked in a factory. It's true. My mum was a nurse, and actually we couldn't make ends meet, which actually isn't a laughing matter.
Rishi Sunak once again said the Rwanda plan is ready to go.
What we've done is already started detaining people. Airfield's on standby, planes are booked. The date for the first flight is out on the 24th, I think it is, of July. And the important point here is this is about establishing a deterrent, because I believe that if people come here illegally, they shouldn't be able to stay. We need to have somewhere safe to remove them, and that's how we will stop the boats. And that's what Rwanda is about.
And then later asked the question, well, if the flight's taking off on the 24th of July, why would you call a general election on the 4th of July? Why would you not want to see those planes in the air?
I suppose it gives him a good, it's a good election argument, isn't it? Considering Labour have said they would cancel the whole plan. That, if you want these flights to take off, you've got to get a Conservative government in. So that's it's sort of a bit of leverage, maybe.
No, yeah, I can see that side as well, yeah.
I don't know. We've got more to come for you today, of course, because Labour and Plaid Cymru are both launching their manifestos later on today, so lots of coverage on that.
Yeah, lots to get through as well. And we've got Charlie Rowley in the studio with us now, the former Special Advisor to Michael Gove. Good to see you this morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
What did you make of that programme last night? What did you make of the performances of Sir Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak?
Well, as far as the debates go, I thought that was actually the best one to date. I did like Beth Rigby's style of sort of the Q&A or the questioning for 25 minutes and then audience Q&A. The great audience of Grimsby, I don't think we're going to let any of them off the hook. So I thought it was a good audience. I felt a little bit sorry for Rishi Sunak going second because I think the very first question to Sir Keir Starmer was about did he think that Jeremy Corbyn was a good Prime Minister, or why did he sort of back Jeremy Corbyn? And it was about faith and trust in politicians and politics, and Sir Keir Starmer couldn't really answer that question. And I think below the surface, the audience were probably holding their emotions in, but were getting more and more frustrated as the night went on when politicians didn't answer the question, until it came to Rishi Sunak, to which I think at that point they felt as though they couldn't contain themselves any longer and were slightly more vocal when Rishi was talking than compared to Sir Keir Starmer. But Sir Keir Starmer did look more in control, despite some of the challenging questions that he had, and some of the answers weren't very clear.
I mean, I found Keir Starmer very frustrating last night with all of that, in the sense that he was asked some pretty straight questions, but really didn't want to answer. And it's... There are ways of doing it. There are ways of saying, well, I can't answer that question, or I don't know exactly what this will be. But instead, just pulling it back to policy and the sound bites that we already know, it was like obfuscation, wasn't it?
I think that's right. And the two clear ones were obviously about Jeremy Corbyn, him saying that he would make a great Prime Minister. You could easily say, look, you know, I don't agree with Jeremy Corbyn, or didn't agree with Jeremy Corbyn on everything. You could find some good qualities about Jeremy Corbyn, about his campaigning for anti-poverty and things like that, but fundamentally it would have been a team effort, and he would have been part of that team to make sure that Jeremy Corbyn didn't do the things that perhaps the public, the majority of the public, weren't in tune with. You could have sidestepped the issue rather than saying, well, I didn't think we were going to win anyway, so I just sort of backed him as Prime Minister. So that was one sticky wicket for Sir Keir Starmer. And the other one was on tax. You know, Beth Rigby in that clip there had to decode and translate to the audience that when a politician says they're not going to put up taxes, that doesn't mean that they're not going to cut them, but also it means that, you know, if you've got no plan to do something, it means nothing's off the table, which means other taxes could go up.
Yes, but I mean, look, all the time you work for Michael Gove, you know how it works. It's almost a bit unfair, isn't it? Because he cannot lay out exactly what is going to happen with taxes in the United Kingdom for the next 5 years. I mean, it's an impossible task.
And that's why I think when you answer these questions, you've got to be in full control, and that's why I think Sir Keir Starmer, OK, despite not necessarily answering it in the best possible way, neither politician seem to be in full control. I think that's where you've got to really sort of rein it in to say, look, Beth, you know, these are really difficult times. You know, the country's been through an awful lot of economic turbulence. It would be wholly irresponsible for me today to sit here to set out those plans until you actually get a real understanding of those books. So I wish I could be clearer to the public. I wish I could set out...
Man, you should have done this last
time. Well, I was sitting at home watching it like everybody else, you know, but, you know, those are the kinds of things that neither leader seems to have been able to have gone through that sort of process to be able to answer the question.
But that was the problem. You came out of it just thinking, I'm not inspired by anybody here. And the nation doesn't feel inspired, which is a problem in a democracy.
It is a problem. You're absolutely right. But what that also presents itself as an opportunity, because if you are undecided on the back of that debate still, and yet you're reading in the newspapers and every other broadcaster that Labour is so much ahead in the polls, turnout could be incredibly low because people don't know exactly who they want to vote for. It makes an easy opportunity for other smaller parties to come into the fray. It actually makes it more difficult to predict whether Labour are going to get that stonking majority of people stay at home if they're turned off by both parties. So, you know, and if the Tories are able to shore up their base in some way, then it could be a very, very different picture to the one that we're seeing or thinking about in terms of the polls.
Both Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer were asked about their personalities last night, weren't they? There was a member of the audience who said that Sir Keir Starmer was a political robot, and then Beth Rigby was asking Rishi Sunak, she was reminding him, wasn't she, of his heyday, if you like, when he was Dishy Rishi, and she says, how do you get people to like you again? What do you think of both of their answers to those questions?
Well, I mean, look, in terms of Sir Keir Starmer, you're absolutely right. You know, audience members said that he came across sort of robotic and didn't answer the question, and to which he sort of stalled and, you know, became the robot exactly as sort of what the audience member was attacking him for. So I think you've got to be able to be authentic. And I think this is where the public were getting frustrated, you know, hearing about Rishi Sunak's parents being in the NHS and, you know, Sir Keir Starmer's father's a toolmaker and wife works in a London NHS hospital, in case you hadn't heard. You know, he repeated that. But people aren't interested about that, actually. They're interested in those individuals. What do they stand for? You know, they're both very wealthy people. So let's just get beyond the idea that they're, you know, like everybody else. They're not. It's about but that doesn't matter. It's about the decisions that they take and the decisions that they're going to make on behalf of all of us. And when it comes to Rishi, yes, being asked about what would make the public like you more, eating Haribo and Twix, I'm not quite sure was the right answer. You've got to probably, I would have said to him, is to say, look, you know, it's not about being liked. You know, it's not about being popular. I'm the Prime Minister. I've got to take difficult decisions. It's not a popularity contest. And so what you would hope that people just see in Rishi Sunak is someone that gets up every day, works incredibly hard from about 5:30 a.m. all the way through to, you know, 11, half 11 at night. Yes, might have the odd Twix or Haribo along the way, and sorry about that. But, you know, he's incredibly hardworking. He's committed to service when he was the Chancellor delivering furlough during COVID, all the way through to taking the difficult decisions that the country needs today. That would have been my advice to him, just to say, look, you know, keep it straight and keep it sort of, you know, honest and open, because it's not about being liked, it's about taking the tough decisions that the country needs.
I mean, in our political climate, our political system, it's growing increasingly odd, isn't it? I mean, look, it was these two men debating last night because they are the two who could be in number 10. And it's going to be one or the other who will be Prime Minister. However, and a lot of people have got in touch, say, well, what about reform? What about Nigel Farage? Well, he's not going to get into number 10. The system won't allow him to do that. It would be absolutely phenomenal if he got enough seats for that. However, when you look at this latest GB News People's poll, reform, just 2 points behind the Conservatives. When it comes to, say, who would you actually like just to be in power after the next election, Nigel Farage and the Reform Party come ahead of the Conservative Party. So it's a really odd system. It makes the system seem absolutely broken, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's about reflecting people's views and the mood of the day. And you know, if you just take that poll, and if you go back to even last night in Grimsby, you know, Grimsby was an area that voted about 70%, I think it was, to leave the European Union. So that's obviously something where Nigel Farage can obviously retain popularity. It's something he's advocated for a long time. And obviously, when the figures were put to the Prime Minister last night about migration and immigration and the number of broken promises, perhaps, from the Conservative government, getting immigration down from the hundreds of thousands to the tens of thousands, that's been a repeated pledge by successive Conservative governments. You can understand why Reform, again, wanting to curb immigration, are doing well. There's no detail, I have to say, or would ask people to look at the detail. What are Reform actually standing for and to deal with those two issues? But, you know, put that to one side. But what you need to be able to do is, when you see polls like that and when you see a shift from what would be your core base to, you know, the Reform Party, if you're Conservative, you're seeing support drain to Reform, you've got to be able to look the voter in the eye and articulate the reasons why have things maybe gone backwards, why has immigration continued to be at the numbers that they're at. And it is because, you know, you've had about, I think it's 250,000 people that came into the UK that we took, you know, opened our hearts and our homes because of Ukraine. I think of another 150,000 in terms of Hong Kong. I know that's a small number in terms of the overall proportion of people that are coming into the country and dealing with the migration figure. But since COVID, you've had about, I think David Cameron was saying earlier on, about 1 million people have left the UK workforce. Now, businesses can't just suddenly switch on to recruiting more people or filling those gaps. So immigration has had to increase to fill the services that need to be done in order to keep the economy going. These aren't people necessarily that are coming into the country sort of, you know, chancing their arm and cheating the system compared to those that are illegal migrants. That's something that absolutely has to be dealt with. And who has the plan for illegal migration? Rishi Sunak Sunak will say it's him and the Conservatives because they've got the Rwanda plan, which the Labour Party have pled to scrap. So you've got to stick with the Conservative Party, otherwise you won't be dealing with the issues such as migration, such as Brexit, which is what the country voted for. And a risk for vote for reform is a risk for getting in the Labour Party.
OK. Charlie, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you this morning. All arguments we've heard before, in a sense, but it's really hitting that point now. 3 weeks to go. Have you decided who you're going to vote for? Are you being convinced? Are you having your mind changed by what any of the leaders, or indeed anyone campaigning for any of the parties, has had to say?
Well, the campaign trail continued up and down the country yesterday. Let's take a look at some of the key moments.
We would argue that you want to make, you don't want to have somebody receive a supermajority. And in this case, of course, the concern would be that if Keir Starmer were to go into number 10, it will either be Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer. There's no other outcome to this election. And that power was in some way unchecked. It would be very bad news for people in this country.
Well, what's important is that when I look at the performance of other small European countries, independent countries, I see them delivering a stronger economic performance and stronger public finances than the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom model is broken. It is absolutely broken.
All of our plans are fully costed, fully funded. There will be no increase in income tax, in national insurance or VAT.
Liberal Democrats have some really attractive, positive ideas to rebuild our economy and help people with the cost of living.
Voters in this country know that to mend broken Britain, we have to invest in our future. Greens have the courage to say that we would change the tax system to make it fairer and make this investment possible.
Yes, Ed Davey in the water, which we've seen a lot of in the last few weeks, haven't we? Now, it is time for the Great British Giveaway now, and your chance to make this summer really special with over £16,000 worth of prizes to be won.
It's 15 grand in cash, plus a load of treats. You have to be in it to win it, of course. So here are the details.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's Newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The
People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Almost half of those seeking to have an affair are happier with their job than with their primary relationship. But what exactly does a cheater do for a living?
Well, medical assistants and nurses, surprisingly, top the lists of professions for female cheaters, and it's jobs in IT or tech for male cheaters, which I think is less of a surprise.
No.
This is all according to a survey by the dating site Ashley Madison.
OK, so why do people cheat? To answer this, we're joined now by broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy.
Morning, Lucy.
So, is it OK of me to say naughty nurses in this day and age? Am I going to get cancelled for that?
You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Been cancelled.
See ya.
There's the door.
But yes, you're talking about the caring professions, and I think it's very appropriate.
I'm surprised by that.
Women, well, because they're very nurturing, very loving, very giving, whereas the males who are in tech and IT, very strategic.
Is there a link between high-pressure jobs, maybe nurses infamously, you know, they're working long hours, underpaid, stressed out? Is there a link between jobs of that nature and cheating, maybe as a relief?
Absolutely. Is it just about sex, or is it about emotional connection? Is it about emotional validation? And increasingly, people are discovering that their primary relationship is just not a place where they feel safe.
This survey found that personality didn't actually come into it that much. It was about half and half if you're an introvert or an extrovert that you'd be likely to have an affair.
I think that's right. And I think that just speaks to the fact that all people want to have a good emotional connection. So it doesn't matter whether you're really social or whether you're someone who has to recharge your batteries in private time, that actually we only ever want three things in life. We want to feel safe, we want to feel loved, but we also want to feel heard. And in increasingly a number of marriages and long-term relationships, we get into grooves, we get into ruts, and we stop hearing our partner, we stop listening to them, and they stop listening to us.
The People's Channel.
Now, Britain's Newsroom, I regret to tell you, is going to be here at 9:30 this morning. Andrew and Bev are standing by. Morning, you two.
Morning.
We're sitting here, actually.
Oh, well, it's all
Andrew,
right.
Andrew's a little tired today. He had a big night on the stage in the West End.
I did.
Would you believe?
And were you there,
Bev?
No.
No, she wasn't.
Would you believe people
Snubbed.
paid money to watch Andrew and Kevin Maguire talk on a stage?
Really?
People
They
paid
did.
money for that.
They must be mad.
So we had a chat about the book, which is great.
Yeah.
But we had a great dust-up about politics and where we are. And Kevin Maguire echoed the astonishing line from Keir Starmer that actually you probably wouldn't use private medicine if somebody knew and loved, desperately needed the
Sociopathic.
And I still don't understand why that is not the defining moment of the general election campaign.
It is, for me.
Yeah, but it's all about how hopeless Rishi Sunak is.
Ideology over humanity.
And it didn't crop up in the Sky leaders' interviews last night.
No. I do think that's very odd. You'd do whatever you could to get your one case.
You'd sell every jewel you'd got, and you've got a lot of jewels, Stephen. You'd sell every jewel you'd got.
You would. You'd do whatever.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And be honest about it.
Yeah. Well, this is it. And I have to say, I thought the leaders' debate, we're not allowed to call it a debate, the interviews last night I thought it was just a washout from both of them, actually.
Well, we're going to show some clips if you didn't watch it last night, and frankly, why would you when GB News is on the other channel? We're going to show some clips and we'll talk about how they did as well this morning. And we've got Sharon Davies at the top of the show because it's been announced that Leah Thomas can't compete in female events at the Olympics. She's the transgender swimmer.
And she is also on the warpath because of the new head of BBC Sport, who takes a pretty dim view of people like Sharon Davies' view on trans people taking part in sports, which is very worrying.
And the Labour Manifesto will be announced in our programme.
But now, what I don't get about the manifesto is 125 pages. Is there going to be enough detail in it to cost it? Because that's what we need to do.
It should be 12 paragraphs because there won't be any detail whatsoever, and it's the most policy-light election campaign from an opposition party I can ever remember.
Wasn't it like that for Margaret Thatcher in =79, though? She was quite policy-light.
She had a very simple policy, which was why I voted for her in 1979, just about old enough. She would bring in secret ballots before strikes. Transform my family's life.
Andrew Pearce, Bev Turner, lots to look forward to. That's coming up at 9:30, Britain's Newsroom. Thanks very much, you two.
Right, that is it from us. We'll see you tomorrow. First, here's the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a chilly start out there this morning for many of us, but it is going to turn cloudier, breezier and, from the west, wetter. Now, we've got some early sunshine for eastern England, northern Scotland as well. Many places turn cloudier through the morning, and for Northern Ireland, western England, western Scotland and Wales, we'll see outbreaks of rain move in. By lunchtime, many places are damp and breezy with some heavy bursts of rain, particularly for Wales, the southwest and Northern Ireland. That's going to make it feel unpleasant, 14 or 15 Celsius. East of England, mostly dry, increasingly cloudy. Northern Scotland, though, keeps the sunshine until late in the day, because many places elsewhere are going to see the rain moving through. Now, across much of England and Wales at 5 p.m. it's damp with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be on and off, but it will be heaviest towards the west. Northern Ireland just seeing the rain starting to clear at this stage, but for the Central Belt, for much of the Highlands, Grampians, Western Isles as well, we'll see outbreaks of rain. Northern Scotland keeps the bright weather until after the sun goes down, and even into the evening it's going to stay mostly dry here. Elsewhere, the rain clears to showers, and the showers become frequent across southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland overnight. It's going to be a breezy night as well, so with the breeze, a change in wind direction compared with the northerlies we've had recently, and the cloud, it's going to be a milder start to Friday, but it is going to be an unsettled start. The more persistent rain by this stage into the Northern Isles, the far north and west of the mainland of Scotland, and elsewhere, frequent showers developing as the day progresses. In between the downpours, there will be some brighter or sunnier spells. Not everywhere will get soaking, but for many places, I would keep an umbrella handy. There are going to be a lot of showers around.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Aberdeenshire, the A90 is closed southbound towards the Crossholes Junction, southwest of Lawrencekirk after an accident. In West Yorkshire, the A647 remains closed each way along Leeds Road in Bradford after a fire. On the M60 in Greater Manchester, two lanes are closed clockwise after an accident between junctions 8 and 9 from Carrington to Trafford Park. It's sloped towards and past there. On the M62 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed eastbound where someone's broken down between junctions 11 and 12 from Birchwood to the Eccles interchange, causing queues. In Norfolk, the A146 is blocked westbound by an accident at Loddon, causing delays. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues getting onto the M25 because of roadworks. In Hampshire, the A326 is closed in both directions at Totton after an accident involving a car and a lorry causing queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Today, we've got a veteran who endeavours to help those suffering from anxiety in all its various forms and manifestations.
Yes, over 3 decades, Simon Lee has established himself as a pioneer, seeking new ways to coach personal development and mental strength.
Oh, look, there's this famous phrase, isn't it, that hard times create weak men and weak men create hard times. Is that the kind of philosophy that your work is based on?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because as a child, I received a masterclass in how weak men create hard times.
Did you go through hard times as a kid?
We had 3 toxic men in the family, and they caused the family no end of grief, trauma and hardship. So, and at the time when you're going through it, you think, well, you can't help but fall into a victim mentality. You think, why me? Why am I going through this? But actually, I couldn't do what I do now without that masterclass.
Do you mind me asking who those men were?
Yep, it's fine. One of them was my stepfather.
Yeah.
One of them was my grandfather, and one of them was my uncle.
Right.
So they're all inner family members. And without exception, all of them, outside of the family doors, wanted to put themselves across as moral pillars of society.
How do you turn that story around and be the man that you are today and turn what you went through into a positive? How do you do that?
You've established that pretty much you can, choose to be a victim of your circumstance or use it as inspiration to do better and say, you know what, when I'm older, for example, if you had a bad childhood, I want to make sure my kids get the kind of childhood I didn't have. So how do you relay that to the people you mentor now, I guess?
What we do, I set up something called Unlimited Courage,